The views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Happy Thursday to you, Fancy Brian.
Happy Thursday to you, Crudy. Happy to be here.
You know, my only regret today, and I have very few regrets in life, my little buddy is not here today, and I'd like to shout out to Dominic, who's traveling or something, some other unexcused reason for absence.
Yeah, all of these exotic things that he's always doing.
That guy lives the life for Riley, I'm telling you.
Good for him.
Good for him. Glad someone's enjoying their life. But here in his absence, my only regret, you know, he has been wrong on the issue of Obamacare for so very long, and the ACA and the whole fighting over the tax and the splitting of the infinitive. And I just wonder if my little buddy, in retrospect, in light of, you know, how Republicans govern, I wonder if he's changed his tune. You know, he's sort of a Medicare for all guy. And 10 years ago, when we started doing this, he was ready to tear up Obamacare because he didn't like it being described as a tax.
Did he have a problem with the death panels, or did he even bring it up?
No, it was so theoretical and non-substantive. His objections to Obamacare and the Supreme Court ruling and the Roberts, the first ruling, and now we're up to number 3. The U.S. Supreme Court has taken 3 bites at this apple in Obamacare, has stood up. ACA still the law of the land. And I'd like to rub it in his face. I wish he was here because he'd have torn it up the first time.
I find it funny that Republican healthcare has the Republicans trying to repeal it over and over again. If Romney just had done it, let's say Romney had won and implemented this thing, they'd be like, you can't take it. This is the greatest thing that ever has happened.
Because this, of course, was Romney Care. This came from Massachusetts, and it was a Heritage Foundation proposition, and it's still the law of the land. And I got to tell you, when this passed, to my perception, Obamacare was a big deal. I got a kid with a pre-existing condition. And part of what politicized me personally was the fact that I watched the autism mandate in the state of Wisconsin. They had a law that would require insurance companies to carry kids and cover kids for autism services. And autism is, you know, it's not cancer. It's not a death sentence, but you need treatment. And these kids need treatment immediately. And the failure to get treatment doesn't leave them plateauing. It leaves them regressing in their skills. And when my child, my eldest son, when he was diagnosed at approximately age 2, the waiting list was 18 months and growing. And you really needed treatment to start immediately. And so we privately funded treatment for our son. And I felt fortunate at the time. I had a few more shekels, but we spent most of them in the treatment pursuit for our son. And he's doing great. He's 17 years old. He will be a contributing citizen in this society in a multitude of ways. And he's a very moral kid. We're very proud of him. But here's the most important part. When Republicans in the state of Wisconsin had the opportunity to do the right thing, and it was a bipartisan bill coming through the Senate side, and I mean, the current day and age, we don't see anything coming through in a bipartisan fashion, but it was scored and it was good math for the state. It was good for the families. And it was supported through the Senate by a vote of like 26-4. And it came over to the assembly side, this mandate proposed by Jim Doyle, the former governor of the state of Wisconsin. And I watched Mike Hipsch kill that. Mike Hipsch then was the Speaker of the Assembly. He went on to be Scott Walker's #1 cabinet secretary, the head of the Department of Administration. A lot of bad stuff came out of Mike Hipsch's governance. And he killed that bipartisan scored bill that everybody liked. Was good for the kids, good for the state of Wisconsin, bad for the insurance industry in some modest way, because it forced them to do the right thing and stop throwing kids with autism, kids with pre-existing condition, off their insurance policies. And it was a year later, Jim Doyle eventually stuck it into the Wisconsin state budget, a must pass, and, did it the ugly sausage making way, but, ultimately did it. And that's what politicized me. That's what made me a guy who used to go and do his job and pay his bills and be quite happy in life and, hope to retire someday. And that's what made me say, you know what? I don't like the way they govern. And I certainly don't like the way they govern in my state. They're not doing it for the kids or the people or their constituents. They were doing it really for the insurance industry, really so they could make a few more dollars of profit. They liked the fact that the insurance companies could deny their own constituents care. And it wasn't a very popular thing from the broader sense. I mean, kids with autism, this is not a huge community, although it's certainly grown. But Jim Doyle, the former governor, stuck it in the budget, used some of his political capital to do the right thing. And I've always admired him for doing so. And my family got involved. I did press conferences. I lobbied. I was at his State of the State speech. I did a press conference with the governor from my living room. And the governor did Ring Around the Rosie with my son, Caden, at the time. Very cute. And the fact that he got down on the level with my 2-year-old and played Ring Around the Rosie with the kid, I thought spoke to his nature as a human being. Because this wasn't a big political win, but this was an important human win. And I saw this as a big win for the kids of the state of Wisconsin. And when Obamacare eventually passed, it was a big deal. Because my personal story, what made me compelling to the governor's office, why they had found us, is because as a newly self-employed guy, I couldn't insure my family. When my COBRA ran out, when my former insurance ran out from the company I had left, I found just simply applying for insurance with a kid with a pre-existing condition like autism meant that I couldn't insure the entirety of my family.
I never had insurance until Obamacare passed. I never had. I was a server. I worked in restaurants and bars, and I was lucky enough to make enough money through acting for a couple years, because you can qualify for SAG insurance, which is fantastic. But if you don't qualify for it, you're screwed. So
if you don't get that role next year, you could die of cancer for lack of health insurance.
Exactly. Now they have provisions, so they're not going to let people, screw off and stuff like that. But I wanted to ask you. So
Yes.
we've had like a decade now of this type of, coverage and Obamacare, right? Roughly or so.
And it's been a decade of Republicans trying to take it away from my kid and my family and many, many more like us.
Yeah. And their objection was that it would cost insurance companies more. And I got to ask you, one, I have to assume treatment has improved. A lot of the fear mongering was that, this will just make it harder to get treatment and things like that. You'll have ridiculous waiting lists and things like that. Has treatment improved? And if you were, let's say now your kid was 2 or 3 at that time, that's when you started this fight. If you entered that fight now, how much better off would your kid have been a decade later?
Well, my kid's still on my health insurance policy, so he's far better off. Otherwise, you know what happens? It's not that the kid doesn't get insured ultimately.
Yeah.
Because my kid would have been a Medicaid kid. He'd have gotten his health insurance care of the taxpayers of the state of Wisconsin. They're not going to leave a kid uninsured, quote unquote. But if I can't insure him, then that falls to the state of Wisconsin. And if that kid doesn't get treatment when he's 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and through the school age years, then that kid becomes a major liability. No offense. He's my kid. I know kids are liabilities, but he's my liability. He shouldn't be the state of Wisconsin or the federal government's liability. But a kid that can never move beyond his disability because he doesn't get treatment, well, that kid becomes, quote unquote, a liability for his lifetime. To fail to invest in the kids at early ages means that you've created a liability for a lifetime for the federal government and the state government. So it's pretty smart and pound foolish not to do Obamacare. And it stood up again today, 3-0. Now, this is a different sort of ruling. They didn't really get into the nuts and the bolts of the action. They just simply said, you know what? We're not taking this up. 7-2, the ruling. I believe it was Gorsuch and Thomas for the 2. The rest, including these 3 new Trump-appointed, 2 of the 3, I guess Gorsuch was a Trumpster. But they said, the states don't have standing. The states don't have the right to try and take Obamacare away from the people. And although there was a lower court ruling that was stayed, and had the U.S. Supreme Court taken this up and found differently, could have taken away Obamacare for millions of Americans. So you asked the question. I'm not always the guy that answers them, but here's my answer. The fear of rationing, there's always going to be someone that has something that doesn't want to share, usually a Republican in my experience. But for the millions and millions and millions of people that now have access to affordable either Medicaid or they have health insurance that's subsidized by the federal government where they did not have that before, or if you want to change a job and you can go to the exchanges and you can keep your insurance, you don't have to deal with the COBRA system or whatever else. You can get insurance independent of an employer. Well, that's a step forward. That's a tremendous step forward. Would I like to see this nation continue to evolve like every other first world nation towards Medicare or Medicaid or a model, a single payer model for all our citizens? Hell yeah, that's where my advocacy is. But Obamacare has done a lot for my family. Obamacare has allowed me to insure my kid. Obamacare allowed my 26, now 27-year-old daughter to have health insurance while she was getting on her feet as a young professional in this world. So I've got nothing but good stuff, mostly to say about Obamacare. And we talked to Dave Obey. Dominic and I talked to Dave Obey, and Dominic made his intellectual objections to Obamacare at that time to Dave Obey. And Dave Obey basically took the attitude, I don't care how we got from here to there. We served millions of American people. We made massive improvement. It was a BFD when Obamacare passed. It's a big deal that Obamacare remains the law of the land because it could have gone differently. Let's not forget the lower courts upheld the Republican point of view that Obamacare should be thrown away. Throw the baby out with the bathwater. Well, Obamacare has stood the test of time. It is the law of the land. We're going to have a fine. Wisconsin's Attorney General, I guess he's a fine guest, and the Attorney General, great state of Wisconsin, Josh Kaul, is going to join us at 3:05. Wisconsin was part of that lawsuit. It wasn't until we got a new, sensible, reasonable, Democratic Attorney General, Josh Kaul, that we withdrew from that ridiculous lawsuit that the Supreme Court wanted no part of. Come back, Devil's Advocates. Happy Thursday.
If you haven't got your health, you haven't got anything.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
The former president, the fact that he needed to drop a press release to call the horse a junkie.
The horse came from a broken home. I heard he was sold for like $1,000. Was born on a dirt patch. Then the pressure, the concept, the training over and over. I mean, really not getting to have a normal childhood and grow up and hang out with their other little horsey friends. Then one of those days, walked down the wrong alley and first one's free. And after that, it was all downhill from there.
Dom, that's why they call it horse.
Listen to Devil's Advocates weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
The Devil's Advocates, tackling the issues you're not allowed to talk about at the dinner table.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. My little buddy's traveling, but he's always been wrong on Obamacare. I wish he was here. I could rub it in his face. The U.S. Supreme Court upholding Obamacare 1, 2, 3 times. Count it, Dominic.
7-2 this time. And the cool thing is I'm playing Jesus Left Chicago because Dom's probably driving through Chicago if he's going to where I think he is. So maybe Jesus just left Chicago because he's got those long hair flowing in the back.
You know, I thought Jesus would be taller.
Everybody says that, but he's got a big head.
You know, the fact that Dom looks like a guy he doesn't believe in, I think is quite humorous on some ironic level.
Therefore, he is the guy he doesn't believe in?
He's Beer Jesus, or so he claims.
He's been crowned Beer Jesus.
You know, that's just like a fallback Halloween costume because he's lazy. 844-967-2789, as am I, which means I'm going to need your help today because otherwise there could be a lot of reading aloud and none of us want that. So we're going to go to the phones. Want to talk about Obamacare. The U.S. Supreme Court has upheld the law of the land 3 times. And want to hear from you. So let's go there now. Jacob from Madison, you're first today. Welcome, Jacob. What do you got for us?
Hey, Mike. It was nice seeing you at the Dream Monkey. I was one of the Patreons there. And nice. I have a very, very relevant story to this whole situation. I actually have a 4-year-old who just started autism therapy yesterday because he was on a waiting list for probably over a year.
Yes, sir.
And so we just started that yesterday, and he's attending that therapy with Medicare, with Medicaid.
Nice.
Yes. So if he did not have that, he was also born 3 months premature, and if he did not have Medicaid, we would owe the hospital over $1 million.
Wow.
And yeah, so Obamacare single-handedly has saved my family from, generations of debt.
Well, Jacob, I got to tell you, they'll give your son, I thought it was the son you mentioned, they'll give your son a new lease on life too. I know when my wife and I first got the diagnosis on Caden, it was sad. Some of our dreams and aspirations for the kid suddenly changed. We had to repeg what it was. And it was so scary, man. You don't know, and it's your kid, and oh my God, they're not developing quote unquote normally, and they're not speaking, and they're regressing. It was I don't want to say a terrible time because it brought us closer, and thank God my wife is such an intuitive person and did the reading and, continued to press our pediatricians for a proper diagnosis. And got that diagnosis and got the treatment. But I can tell you, Jacob, 15 years later, oh my God, am I proud of this kid? He's going into a senior year. He's got a job and a girlfriend, and he's such a moral kid. And Jacob, once upon a time, I didn't know if my kid would talk. You know what I mean?
Dude, I have been there. My son was born 3 months early. He was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at 1 year old, autism at 2 years old. It's been a hell of a ride. And so if there are a few people that can identify with your situation, I definitely can. And all thanks to Obamacare. So thanks, Obama.
Thank you, Obama. Jacob, really appreciate you supporting us. And, man, if you ever need to talk, you know how to get a hold of me. I got your back on this one. 844-967-2789. Judy from Eau Claire. How you doing, Judy?
Well, I was singing Hallelujah today, too, because that is a beautiful thing, finally. And I agree with you. Everything that you said about kids, I used to work with kids as, and parents, and it's a difficult time, but it's such a beautiful thing to see the kids get help and assistance in modifications that they need to compensate and to do some recovery too. So that's a really wonderful thing. In addition to that, I want to add too is that there were a lot of older people and people, that may have needed treatment, and they discovered some kind of illness that they may have had years ago, and they didn't put it down because they didn't have it anymore or whatever, and then it was a pre-existing condition, therefore getting kicked off their insurance and not getting covered for whatever they submitted their claims for. It was a dirty deal. Insurance companies could really throw that in people's faces, this pre-existing condition.
Lifetime caps, Jeannie. There were all kinds of ways that the insurance company used the fine print to enhance their bottom line, really at the expense of somebody's life sometimes.
Yes, and people not wanting to get diagnosed or not wanting to go to the doctor for fear they had something that may be bad, and then they wouldn't get any insurance coverage. So this is so wonderful, and I'm really excited about your son. He sounds like a really special guy. He's probably got some really special gifts there too. I'll bet money on it. So anyway,
he's the best kid, Jeannie. I mean, I hate to play favorites, but he's the best one.
Jeannie, he's totally taking advantage of this labor market too.
That's great. And by the way, happy belated birthday, guys.
Well, thank you, Jeannie. Very kind of you.
Great show. And take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jeannie. Thanks for joining us. 844-967-2789. You're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Sort of exciting news. It broke today. The U.S. Supreme Court. And I was quite nervous. You know, and I didn't think there was a likelihood of a bad ruling, but you never can tell. It's a 6-3 conservative Supreme Court. And they had another bite at the apple. And Obamacare was the topic. And we all know that what the Republicans do under Trump, they didn't even repeal and replace it. They just repealed it on the House side and threw a kegger at the White House. They were so excited. I mean, it's been such a twisted exercise. 60 cracks, I think they took legislatively at trying to repeal Obamacare. In any minute now, I feel quite confident that Trump's going to roll out his replacement plan. Because he said like 2 weeks.
It's going to be so detailed.
And it's been like 3.5 years. So at some point, 2 weeks will go by and we'll have that replacement plan. But in the interim, Obamacare, ACA 3.0, it's the law of the land. This time, they just sent it back and said, no standing. Get out of here, you filthy Republicans. Come back with us. More of your phone calls, 844-967-2789.
Do you smell what Barack is cooking?
This is the radio station you were looking for. Devil Radio 92.7. It surrounds us. It penetrates us. It binds the world together.
Help me, Devil Radio. You're my only hope.
My name is Rocker, and this is my vodka. Rocker Vodka is distilled right here in Madison, made from corn and gluten-free. Find Rocker Vodka at Woodman's, Festival Foods, Trixie's Liquor, Star Liquor, Steve's Liquor, Willie Street Co-op, Total Wine, Vic Pierce, Miller's Market, Cambridge Cooler. Find more at rockervodka.com. It's yummy. Must be 21. Please drink responsibly.
Talking to the devil.
Hey, Joanne, I hear you have a Tech Protect plan from Community PC.
I have been having services since 2013. He provides monthly maintenance for me. He is able to attach to my computer so he can figure out what my problems are. I'm very computer illiterate. If I had to call somebody on the telephone, I would probably not be able to follow through with that.
Community PC. We know what makes seniors happy.
You with an AP News Minute. Mark and Patricia McCloskey, the St. Louis couple who pointed guns at social justice demonstrators last year, each pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges. The couple also agreed to forfeit both weapons they used when they confronted protesters who were marching in front of their home. They claimed the protesters were trespassing. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill that lets people carry handguns without first getting a background check and training. Abbott says it's a pushback of the federal government's narrative.
Second Amendment rights are under assault. The government officials are saying, heck yes, government is coming to take your guns. Texas will not let that happen.
Abbott calls it a measure in Texas of freedom and self-defense. Police in Georgia say an officer has died after a traffic stop in which he shot and killed a man, possibly as the officer was being dragged. Officials had initially said the officer in Georgia had been shot to death. I'm Ed Donahue.
Is your bathroom looking old and worn out? Want to update it, but you don't know where to start?
Then let BCI Bath and Shower show you how to turn that old bath into an aisle of beauty and functionality. Our residential bathroom solutions provide the best value on the market, and our customer service is second to none. Our cost-effective BCI Bath and Shower family of products has what you need.
Remodeling our bathroom was a big decision for us.
They didn't make a mess out of our house at all. And at the end of the day, we had a beautiful new bathroom. And it was a great experience the whole way through.
We have the best monthly payment programs in the industry, with payments as low as $68 per month or no interest, no payments for 18 months. That's right. Get the bathroom of your dreams now and pay for it in 2021. Call 1-800-303-2352 for a free no-obligation price quote. That's 1-800-303-2352. When you want quality bathroom products at a great price, it's got to be BCI Bath and Shower. That's 1-800-303-2352.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Wednesday, state assembly Republicans passed bills that would ban transgender student athletes from competing in girls' and women's athletics, two pieces of legislation Governor Tony Evers has expressed his opposition to and is expected to veto if they reach his desk. Earlier this week, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services elevated the Delta variant of COVID-19, first identified in India last year, from variant of interest to variant of concern. Health officials are encouraging unvaccinated residents to get their COVID-19 vaccines as soon as possible to protect from the spread of this and other variants of the virus. Yesterday, U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany was one of 14 Republican lawmakers to vote against making Juneteenth a federally paid holiday. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates. Rock and roll political commentary in a top 40 world.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Just little old B and little old fancy Brian and little old you on the phones, 844-967-2789. Fancy Brian, there is some sound. We've got the majority leader of the U.S. Senate, Chuck Schumer. You know, it's nice when it's a Democrat that actually has the more meaningful title. I hate saying minority leader, like we often have to do legislatively here in Wisconsin. But let's hear Schumer on SCOTUS, the ruling. Obamacare upheld, this time for lack of standing, but that's 3-0. Obamacare being upheld in the courts at the highest level. So Chuck Schumer, cut 20 if you would, fancy.
For more than a decade, the assault on our health care law was relentless from Republicans in Congress, from the executive branch itself, and from Republican attorneys general in the courts.
But the ACA, it has prevailed. Cut 21, please.
Each time, in each arena, the Affordable Care Act has prevailed.
And it's here to stay. And that's a little hard to say as a guy that would advocate to go farther. Medicare for all would be my advocacy. We know that Joe Biden has proposed perhaps a public option as part of the Obamacare, as part of the ACA. And Joe Biden famously called it a BFD on a live mic when the Obamacare first passed and was signed into law by his former boss, Barack Obama. I think that this will be the healthcare delivery mechanism for some years to come, because for good or for bad, Joe Biden's going to use this framework and either grow it, and let's hurry up and do so, Joe. But at minimum, it's going to be the ongoing delivery network, or at least that's my impression. Did we play cut 22?
The Affordable Care Act has won. The Supreme Court has just ruled. The ACA is here to stay. And now we're going to try to make it bigger and better. Establish once and for all affordable health care as a basic right of every American citizen.
They're winners. Winners get to do what they want.
We've got a little bit more. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, same topic, SCOTUS ruling on Obamacare, the pillar of economic and health security. Nancy Pelosi, cut 12, please.
When we passed it, I said this is a pillar of economic and health security.
More from Nancy Pelosi, if you would, cut 13.
We will never forget how Republican leaders embrace this monstrous way to rip away America's health care in the middle of a deadly pandemic.
One more, Nancy Pelosi, SCOTUS on Obamacare. Cut 14, please.
Because of the extension, but also because of the expansion of access to benefits that we have put into the rescue package. I'm very proud of all of that.
As am I, Nancy. I think the nation should be proud. Republicans have failed once again to take away our health care from millions.
They had a kegger about it. They were so proud of themselves.
And they hadn't even accomplished anything.
They didn't do anything.
844-967-2789. Plenty of time for you, our fair audience. We've got the Attorney General, great state of Wisconsin, on this very topic coming up at 3:05. And we're going to celebrate Juneteenth. Now a federal holiday. It's going to be a day off tomorrow, not just for Dominic, but for all the federal employees. We're going to bring our own friend, Earl Ingram, Devil's Advocates, Devil Radio's own Earl Ingram from the Earl Ingram Show. He's going to join us later in the big show, about 4:30 today. And tomorrow, he's going to fill in. He's going to do a Juneteenth special on the Juneteenth holiday observed June 18th, tomorrow, Friday. So Earl's going to warm us up today and have a big special event tomorrow coming up in lieu of the Devil's Advocates. And right now I'm going back to the phones. You look like you.
I had a joke that I'm definitely not going to go with, but
come on, man.
No,
listen,
what
were you going to say?
I am absolutely all for Juneteenth. I think it's fantastic. I'm really happy that it's a federal holiday. I am all about it. But I have to question people who have a problem with anything becoming a federal holiday at all. I want everything to become a federal. Can we have a federal holiday every other week? That'd be fantastic.
You know, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, Wisconsin's own, would take great umbrage with that assessment because he, of course, singularly kept Juneteenth from being a federal holiday up until yesterday.
Yeah.
Finally got out of the way. He was singularly holding up unanimous consent so this could pass the U.S. Senate. And now that it's passed the Senate, it went through the House with only 14 dissenting Republicans, including one from Wisconsin. Tom Tiffany, Toxic Tom. I mean, the guy's only been on the Hill for 6 months, and he's already proven he is amongst the worst U.S. Congress people. But over the objections of Tom Tiffany and 13 others, Juneteenth will be a federal holiday effective tomorrow. Once again, my buddy Earl Ingram from Devil Radio
They weren't going to work that day anyway. So take the day anyway. You don't do anything during President's Day. Nobody makes you do anything. It's a federal holiday. Take the day off. That's it. You don't have to go to a festival. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to march in a Black Lives Matter thing. If you want to, that's awesome. Go do so. I encourage you to. But you don't have to do it. Take the freaking day off. What's wrong with you people?
In the immortal words of our Vice President, Kamala Harris, enjoy the long weekend. 844-967-2789. I kid. Mark from the SAC, welcome back. Nice to see you the other day as well, Mark. What do you got for us?
Well, I mean, the whole pre-existing conditions thing that affects me because I was born with something called neurofibromatosis, something genetically passed on from my mother. But I had a cousin.
That's painful, right? That's just like regular pain?
No, it's little fatty tumors along my, in the myelin sheath.
Oh, yeah. I'm confusing with a similar thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that, but I mean, it's, I had a cousin that is in the autism scale. I think he had Asperger's syndrome, and he's the same age as I am. So this is, born 1958, and he had, and how his mother got him, through all this and, made sure that he, he's actually a functional human being right now. I mean, he's had a job and all that. That there's other things he hasn't done, but he was very socially awkward. But I mean, that he had a, and for these, and now there's so much better on, but Republicans want to deny that of people, deny that care to people through their insurance companies because a lot of people just couldn't handle it. I mean, she was a stay-at-home mom, so she had that going for her back then. But I mean, that it is just sad that these Republicans want to do this. And I can't pass on, Greg Abbott just celebrating no background checks down in Texas for firearms. Does that mean some illegal immigrant can walk up to the counter and buy himself, a weapon? And it's just bat crap crazy, because you got guys down there can, just get out of jail from beating up their wives and going buy a weapon. I mean, it just is, it's crazy. I mean,
Mark, I don't know all the particulars. I think you've got at least most of that right. Abbott, the governor of Texas, signed into law a bill that says you can carry a weapon without any sort of permit and without any sort of prior training. And above and beyond that, Mark, you talk about the illegal immigrants, as, Abbott, I'm sure, would describe them as crossing the Rio Grande Valley and walking into Texas. Well, Abbott's putting a $250 million crowdsourced down payment on the wall. And my understanding is the wall's very expensive to build. Apparently, at least it was when Trump's buddies were building it. It was like $1 billion a mile. So if I understand Greg Abbott's pledge of other people's money here, he's pledged like a 1/4 mile of wall.
That's a lot of wall, and nobody would ever be able to walk around that 1/4 mile.
Well, I'm not sure if Mexico's going to pay for it, but certainly it's not going to be Greg Abbott's money.
Eventually, they're going to pay for it as soon as that Trump healthcare plan gets rolled out,
and tariffs and such, right?
And things. There's going to be a lot of things, and a lot of things that are like that will be happening, and stuff and different people. Did you know that this guy over here said something? I just heard this backstage. Somebody said it was very important and very big.
Maggie Haberman at the New York Times said just yesterday, Donald Trump started to realize he's no longer the president. It was the meeting with Putin, Biden and Putin meeting, and, on this world stage with the international press. And apparently Donald Trump used to live for those moments, Fancy Brian. And Donald Trump apparently sitting in Bedminster and just came to the realization, I didn't get that meeting.
My ex is really out with somebody else. Oh, no, I saw them at the restaurant.
It's over. It's over.
They were kissing.
I've got an opinion piece here at the Washington Post, although I'd love to follow you down that rabbit hole. The Supreme Court confirms it time for the GOP to give up on destroying the ACA. Paul Waldman writes at the Post, once again, Republicans have failed in their seemingly endless quest to have the Affordable Care Act wiped from the pages of history. This time with their third defeat at the Supreme Court. If they had any sense, this should bring that shameful crusade to an end. Do you think they have the sense to give up this battle, or do you
not
think
not as long as the base wants to get rid of it? Not as long as the base still hates Obama, they're going to keep fighting it.
Opposition to Obamacare really led to the loss of about 1,000 legislative seats nationwide. I mean, it was great politics for the Republicans to be oppositional to Obamacare. But what, 10, 12 years later, starting to lose some of its thunder.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it until it's completely broken, and then don't do anything.
I'm going to read on from Waldman's opinion piece here. The court did what it often does on complicated cases where a sweeping ruling might be politically and practically disruptive. It ruled only on a narrow legal question. In this instance, whether the plaintiffs in the suit had standing to bring it in the first place. Those plaintiffs were 18 Republican-run states, later joined by 2 individuals who claimed that if you cover one eye and hold the ACA up to the light while turning it counterclockwise, it will appear to be unconstitutional. But in order to have standing to sue, a plaintiff must establish that they were injured in some way. 7 justices ruled quite properly that they had not. Here's a quote. I believe this was from the majority ruling written by Justice Stephen Breyer. Neither the individual nor the state plaintiffs have shown that the injury they will suffer or have suffered is fairly traceable to the allegedly unlawful conduct of which they complain. The question revolved around the ACA's individual mandate, which initially required most Americans to carry health insurance or pay a fine. A tax, I think they called in the court. Staub took some umbrage to that. That's why he's always been wrong on this. Congress later reduced that fine to $0. Republicans then claimed that since the mandate was now effectively existed only on paper, that meant that almost the entire law had to be declared null and void. Wasn't there something about chopping off the offending part? Do you amputate from the neck? That's sort of the Republican principle here, is it not? the severability of the offending part of the law. But Republicans didn't want that. They want the baby thrown out with the bathwater. A little bit more. Serious people on all sides found this argument to be preposterous, even if not quite the most preposterous of the legal arguments conservatives had pulled out of the air or their you-know-what to destroy the ACA. And the fact that even some of the court's committed conservative ideologues, Clarence Thomas, and committed Republicans, Brett Kavanaugh, joined the majority in turning back this challenge. I think I may have misspoke. I thought Clarence Thomas was with Gorsuch. My bad. Join the majority in turning back this challenge says a lot about the state of the anti-Obamacare crusade. This case is different from the prior ACA cases the court considered in an important way. You won't see too many Republicans tearing their hair out over the fact that they lost or declaring the conservative justices who voted with the majority to be traitors to their cause. Well, don't be so sure that the Ted Cruzes of the world won't be there, and the Ron Johnsons and a few others. But many of them were swept into power by opposition to Obama and Obamacare. And it's been upheld in the courts, all the way at the highest court of the land, a third time. So Dom's always been wrong on this issue, as have Republicans. I sort of throw them all together, on this topic at least. Come back with us. Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Join the political party. Dial right now. 844-967-2789. The Attorney General, great state of Wisconsin, coming up at 3:05. Your calls could be next.
Happily will win, I think.
So you get nothing. You lose.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join MoveOn's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates, inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
The Devil's Advocates. They refuse to do math on the radio.
Dr. Michael Hicks, professor of economics, director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at Ball State University. This is troubling math all the way around. According to your mathematics, Michael, when do you think the great state of Wisconsin will get paid back on its investment?
Right. I mean, the answer is the answer is never.
Folks, this is a long-distance dedication from a man named Donald out to his buddy Vladimir. I miss you, buddy. Look outside your window. I'm holding up a big boombox for you.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. It's just me and Fancy Brian. We got to entertain ourselves in some way. I take a little glee in the failures of Republicans once again. And I don't think even many of these Republicans want to succeed at this late hour because the blowback would be enormous. Reading from a piece at the Washington Post, Paul Waldman, I'll get this one knocked out quickly here. The desire to drive a stake through the heart of Barack Obama's signature legislation simply does not feel as urgent as it did back when Republicans in the House were passing dozens of fruitless repeal bills. There are a number of reasons, all of which have to do with the passage of time. The incandescent loathing Republicans felt for Obama and everything he produced has lessened a bit, given that he left office more than 4 years ago, 4 years that seemed like 40. The law has grown steadily more popular, which raises the political risks to the GOP of striking it down. Most important, in all its complexity, the ACA is woven intrinsically into nearly every facet of the healthcare system. That means if Congress or the Supreme Court snatched it away, the result would be nothing short of a cataclysm, with tens of millions losing coverage and the entire system thrown into chaos. All but the most foolish Republicans, looking at you, Ted Cruz, know this, which is why every time they fall short of killing the ACA with these challenges and with their slapdash 2017 repeal bill that almost passed, they know they're better off for having failed, thereby avoiding the inevitable backlash. So now we have to ask ourselves a question, or themselves. Can they finally just give up and accept the fact that the ACA is and will remain the law of the land? Now, that could be a good jumping off point here from this piece. Do you think the Republicans will stop trying to repeal and replace with no real replacement plan? Do you think they've given up on trying to destroy the Obamacare?
As long as it depends on how it polls. Right now, according to our resident Obamacare hater, George, it still polls with them. So I would say they're going to still try and do it as long as it's there, as long as they gain any traction whatsoever. I mean, dude, they blocked a national holiday. They're blocking things that everybody wants. Most of the country, we've seen the polling, most of the country wants legalized cannabis, and they're saying, no, it doesn't matter because most of their people don't want it. Actually, most of their people do want it. They don't care. It doesn't matter. They're going to keep doing it.
But, and cannabis, an important issue to me, as you well know. But cannabis is a secondary issue to the broader healthcare question.
Yeah, clearly they're different.
Because healthcare is 20% of the gross domestic product. I mean, it's an enormous portion of the federal government and the economy, and Republicans are tampering with something that's intrinsic to all of us. We all want to have healthcare. We all want to have affordable and accessible healthcare. And most Republicans take the attitude, well, I got mine.
And the thing is, this is where people tell me, hey, you hate Republicans, you don't like conservatives and stuff. And I go, I lament actual real conservatives, people that will go and look at a problem like this and come at it from a conservative angle and say, this is how I would make this more efficient. This is how I would make this better and more affordable for everybody. Come at it from their angle. How do you make this better? Add to it, or maybe make it better, or do something better. And I haven't seen even an idea one on how to do that other than to get rid of it.
So the replacement plan, you're still holding out for that.
My point is any
they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan.
Have a full one, even just something that shows that you have a desire to make things better.
Yes. Let me bring Waldman's piece. There's a little bit more here. I'm going to read it to the conclusion. That doesn't mean the Republicans have to stop advocating for their version of healthcare reform, though the truth is that plenty of Republicans would be more than happy to do just that. Healthcare isn't a topic that interests most of them all that much, but it would do them and the rest of us a whole lot of good if they gave up on the dream of someone swooping in with a giant fist to crush Obama's healthcare law. We're not going to stop debating healthcare, not in the short term, and probably not ever. We have what is almost certainly the most complicated system in the world, and assemblage of private and public elements that don't fit quite together and produce staggeringly inefficiencies and cost. Yet there may be almost nothing in American politics that would be more difficult to achieve than the kind of wholesale overhaul of the system that would fix most or all of its problems at once. Which means that we'll keep trying to expand coverage, to restrain costs, to limit the miserable suffering the system allows, and to generally try and make a bad situation better with piecemeal additions and changes and reforms. Every one of them will probably be the subject of intense political debate. But after more than a decade of battles in the courts, in Congress, and state legislatures, the Affordable Care Act is won. It's long past time for Republicans to accept it. I'm not clear if they have or ever will. Not if, they think it's good politics to tear healthcare away from the masses, from the millions.
Well, again, they're your older brother. They're your older brother that just picks on you because they want to pick on you. And they will never, ever, ever say, you know what, I'm wrong or I'm sorry and mean it, because that would mean that they just said that to their little brother. Meh. It's literally, I'm serious. It's literally that simple.
I had an older brother, and I far more often, I was the more violent of the brothers. He was a nicer kid than I. And, if someone was going to pin down someone's shoulders and, drip that trickle of spit and let it get close to it, then you suck it back up, I was the offender in that case, right? The younger brother, but physically the bigger brother. I was the guy picking on my brother. Sort of a fair fight, but I usually got on top. But ultimately, here's the deal. My brother didn't have to reelect me. That's the part I don't understand about these bully Republicans, as you might describe them. They still got to win reelection. They act like their own constituents somehow have got healthcare all figured out. And they don't need the federal government. It's just those damn lazy people living in the cities that utilize the hospitals and the health insurance and the Medicare and the Medicaid and the Veterans Administration. A big portion of our medical administration right now is done by the federal government. And it's not just the blue states accepting that sort of help. Although, here in the state of Wisconsin, Republicans would rather turn back billions of dollars than do the right things by their constituents. We got 80, 90,000 Wisconsinites that should be eligible for Medicaid, for cost-free health care, at least to them. And instead, Wisconsin Republicans have continuously objected to expanding Medicaid. We got this unique Scott Walker plan in the state of Wisconsin that leaves 80 or 90,000 people paying money they cannot afford, and the system was not designed to charge them. They're supposed to be Medicaid eligible. Instead, they say, well, they can be subsidized in the Obamacare exchanges, and if they can't afford the co-pays, well, that's their problem. I got my health insurance. Come back. We got a fine guest, Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul, hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates, next.
Oh, my arm. It's broken.
We're not doctors.
I'm not a doctor. I'm a moron.
Are you talking to me?
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Wisconsin is getting back to doing what it does best, enjoying themselves with friends and neighbors. If you're looking for a night out or kick-ass food, Johnny's Lounge in Beaver Dam is your place. Located at 519 Madison Street, right on the lake, Johnny's Lounge is a big patio with amazing views and a fun staff. Drink specials every night. Bar dice, flip cup, incredible burgers, kitchen open late, everything a Wisconsinite could want. Johnny's Lounge at Beaver Dam. It may not be possible to have too much fun, but we sure try.
You are listening to WTTN Columbus, W224EG Madison, always streaming at doubleradio927.com.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. The Supreme Court rejected the third major challenge to the national health care law known as Obamacare. The law remains intact after the court ruled Texas, other Republican-led states, and 2 individuals had no right to bring their lawsuit in federal court. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says Democrats stepped up the legal fight and won.
We will never forget how Republican leaders embraced this monstrous way to rip away America's health care in the middle of a deadly pandemic.
Also from the Supreme Court, a victory for religious groups. The justices unanimously sided with a Catholic foster care agency in Philadelphia that says its religious views prevent it from working with same-sex couples. The Justice Department slammed a new West Virginia law that bans transgender athletes from competing in female sports. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill letting people carry handguns without first getting a background check and training.
People are saying from the federal level to the local level that Second Amendment rights are under assault, that government officials are saying, heck yes, government is coming to take your guns. Texas will not let that happen.
Abbott calls it a measure of freedom and self-defense. The Biden administration will spend more than $3 billion to advance development of antiviral pills for coronavirus and other dangerous viruses that could turn into pandemics. Dr. Anthony Fauci says it's a good investment.
We have a great deal of optimism that this program will ultimately be as successful as the highly successful program that we had implemented both for HIV and for hepatitis C.
Fauci says the focus is still on vaccines. Mark and Patricia McCloskey, the St. Louis couple who pointed guns at social justice demonstrators last year, each pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges. The couple also agreed to forfeit both weapons they used when they confronted protesters who were marching in front of their homes. This is AP News.
Is your bathroom looking old and worn out? Want to update it, but you don't know where to start? Then let BCI Bath & Shower show you how to turn that old bath into an aisle of beauty and functionality. Our residential bathroom solutions provide the best value on the market, and our customer service is second to none. Our cost-effective BCI Bath & Shower family of products has what you need.
Remodeling our bathroom was a big decision for us.
They didn't make a mess out of our house at all. And at the end of the day, we had a beautiful new bathroom. And it was a great experience the whole way through.
We have the best monthly payment programs in the industry, with payments as low as $68 per month or no interest, no payments for 18 months. That's right. Get the bathroom of your dreams now and pay for it in 2021. Call 1-800-303-2352 for a free no-obligation price quote. That's 1-800-303-2352. When you want quality bathroom products at a great price, it's got to be BCI Bath & Shower. That's 1-800-303-2352.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
Get that an e-bike for Father's Day. Crazy Lenny has over 150 different e-bikes to choose from. The largest selection in the entire USA.
We have mountain e-bikes for $1,500, fat tire e-bikes with the throttle for $1,100, commuter e-bikes for $980.
Get Dad an e-bike gift certificate so Dad selects the bike he wants and the size he wants.
Gift certificates are discounted, so get a $300 certificate for Dad. You pay only $240.
Get Dad an e-bike gift certificate at Crazy Lenny's e-bikes.
My name is Rocker, and this is my vodka. Rocker Vodka is distilled right here in Madison, made from corn and gluten-free. Find Rocker Vodka at Woodman's, Festival Foods, Trixie's Liquor, Star Liquor, Steve's Liquor, Willie Street Co-op, Total Wine, Vic Pierce, Miller's Market, Cambridge Cooler. Find more at rockervodka.com. It's yummy. Must be 21. Please drink responsibly.
Hey there, my name is Kirk Bankstad, and I own the Monaco Brewing Company. I teamed up with Kristen Bry, the hilarious creator of As Goes Wisconsin, and Pat Kreitlow, the managing director of Up North News, to create the Up North podcast. We're going to talk about Wisconsin news and culture through the eyes of Northern Wisconsinites, but also through our progressive viewpoints in the heart of one of the reddest parts of our state. We'll be doing our show live at Devil Radio 92.7 on Wednesday nights at 7, and you can check the podcast out at upnorthpodcast.com.
Won't you let me die?
Saturday morning at 9 a.m., tune in for Ask the Builder and hear about projects that can be done to improve your space. Join me, Naomi Croft, and members of our team at Bachman Construction as we take calls from the community and share our family's 3 generations of experience.
Ask the Builder is Saturdays at 9 a.m.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Wednesday, Republicans in the Wisconsin State Assembly advanced a bill that would delay the creation of new local municipal political lines until after next spring's elections. Due to delays in the 2020 census data, some local municipalities are concerned there will not be enough time to create new maps before the spring elections. Critics of the bill claim the legislation violates Wisconsinites' right to one person, one vote if the maps are not updated in time, and local municipalities should not be forced to use outdated maps for another cycle. 50% chance of rain showers beginning this morning, leading to isolated thunderstorms throughout the afternoon and a high of 89 degrees. Forecast of strengthening thunderstorms this evening with a chance for high winds and hail, overnight low of 68 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Happy Thursday to us all. We welcome back a fine guest right now from the top. He is the Attorney General of the great state of Wisconsin. He's Josh Kaul. He's a friend of ours. Josh, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Good to be back on the program.
Josh, an extremely big ruling out of the U.S. Supreme Court. And this is the third time the Supreme Court has upheld Obamacare. Obviously, they didn't get into the nuts and bolts, turn this one back for standing. But Josh, let's set the stage. When you first took office a couple of years ago, your predecessor, the Republican Attorney General Brad Schimmel, actually had been part of this lawsuit. And the former Solicitor General, or Misha Tetzlin, my understanding, had written this lawsuit on behalf of Texas. And Texas and Wisconsin were partners in trying to get this lawsuit into the right court in Texas. They sort of court shopped. And my understanding, Josh, under the former administration, Wisconsin was instrumental in this effort to overturn Obamacare. Did I get most or some of that right, sir?
Yeah, Wisconsin in 2018 was one of the leaders of this lawsuit that was trying to end the Affordable Care Act, including its protections for people with a pre-existing condition, the lifetime limits, the protections for young adults who are able to extend their parents' coverage. And after I was elected, I'm sure you remember, the legislature met an extraordinary session and limited our ability to withdraw from cases like this. So for the first few months I was in office, even though I had made clear that I was against this suit, we were unable to withdraw. But then we got a court order that blocked that the lame duck laws from effect for a period of time, and we withdrew very quickly from that suit. Ultimately, in 2020, we joined a brief supporting keeping the ACA in place with 4 other states. So we went from being a state that was leading this attack on the ACA to being one that was joining the effort to keep the ACA in place. And I'm really proud that we ended up on the right side of this case.
Josh, was it the zeroing out of the individual mandate? If there's no switch, if you will, then somehow Republican logic and their attorneys generals that led this suit, they reasoned that the entirety of the lawsuit or the entirety of the Obamacare should be thrown out. I always wondered why severability would not come into play here. If there's some objectionable part, why wouldn't you just chop off the offending limb? Why would you throw the baby out with the bathwater, Josh?
No, you're absolutely right. One of the reasons that this suit was so weak is because the plaintiffs didn't have standing, and that's what the court today found. We've got a 6-3 conservative majority, and yet they ruled 7-2 against this challenge. But another reason that this challenge was so weak, legally speaking, is the argument was, well, the prior decision had said that the mandate is constitutional because it's a tax. Now the mandate is $0, the penalty for not having insurance. And so if $0, you can't, it's a tax. And whatever you think of that argument, what the people challenging the law here were saying was, and if the mandate is gone, you've got to strike down the entire law, all the rest of the parts of it. But the same Congress that made the mandate $0 rejected efforts to overturn the ACA. So one of the arguments here was, Congress made clear that even if the mandate is gone, the rest of the ACA should remain in place. And I think that argument would have been a winner also, but the court didn't need to reach it today because the ruling on other grounds.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Got a fine guest. He is the Wisconsin Attorney General, Josh Kaul. He's a friend of ours. Josh, had this gone a differing way, had the U.S. Supreme Court upheld what was ruled in the Texas court, what would the consequences have been to Wisconsin citizens?
The stakes in the case were enormous. Just if you look at the numbers, tens of millions of people would lose access to health insurance coverage. Protections would have been eliminated for people with a pre-existing condition. The lifetime limits issue I mentioned before. And just to make it a little bit more specific, just earlier today, as an example, I was on a conference call that involved a few people who have been impacted by the ACA, and I've been on other ones, both as a candidate for Attorney General and now as Attorney General. And there are people who are only able to get access to critical healthcare services that they need, and sometimes life-saving healthcare services, because the ACA exists. Their pre-existing condition doesn't prevent them from getting coverage. There are also people who are able to avoid bankruptcy because of protections from the ACA. Because of the ruling today, there are going to be fewer people who are driven into bankruptcy by medical bills. And then young adults, high school graduates, college students, or recent college grads who take a first job, they don't have insurance. Under the ACA, they're guaranteed to be able to stay on their parents' health insurance coverage until they're 26. So this ruling it keeps us where we are, but a different ruling would have had enormous negative consequences.
Well, Josh, we know the political history of ACA and Obamacare, and we've seen that Republicans use this as a political tool, and they've won lots of seats. And hell, they changed some of the legislative makeup, not just in the state of Wisconsin, but across the nation, in no small part with their opposition to Obamacare. But here we are. The courts have now ruled 3 times. It is the law of the land for going on a decade. It's intrinsic to all of our healthcare delivery systems at this point. Josh, do you think Republicans are finally done fighting this fight, at least through the courts?
I hope so, but I'm also aware of the history here, which is that this has been under attack in the courts for about a decade. And, I would really hesitant to predict that we're not going to see future attacks on the ACA or on protections that provides for people's access to health insurance coverage. And, I am going to remain vigilant and continue to protect this law if there are challenges. What I hope happens, though, instead is finally we're going to see people accept that the ACA is here to stay. As you said, it's not like we can go back now. The ACA has been in place for a long time, and the healthcare system has adjusted. And so suddenly getting rid of it would entirely disrupt the healthcare system. What we should be doing instead is expanding on access to affordable health insurance coverage. Some of that was part of the American Rescue Plan that was recently passed. Those were temporary changes. I hope to see them made permanent. And here in Wisconsin, it's now clear the ACA is remaining. So hopefully the legislature will finally do the right thing and say, you know what, we can save the state $1.6 billion over this next couple of years by accepting Medicaid expansion and cover tens of thousands of additional people. Hopefully they'll finally rethink that, but obviously that's not something we've done so far.
Josh Kaul, the Attorney General, great state of Wisconsin, for a few more minutes. Josh, my understanding, according to reporting locally, there's another lawsuit that the former Republican Attorney General entered into, a multi-state lawsuit regarding abortion. And part of the lame duck, as you described it, Josh, is, Republicans said effectively, you can't make decisions as the Attorney General on whether or not Wisconsin settles these lawsuits without the permission of the Republican-dominated Joint Finance Committee. Now, Josh, where do we stand on this newest lawsuit you'd like to withdraw, perhaps similarly to the fact that Wisconsin withdrew from this ACA lawsuit, a change of administration, a change of ideology? But Josh, will Republicans allow us to withdraw from this lawsuit?
Yeah, we'll find out. So one slight clarification. This is a rule that was put in place under the Trump administration originally, relating to the Title X program. And Title X provides funding for a lot of critical healthcare services, and the provider for a lot of those services is Planned Parenthood. The Trump administration changed the way that Title X works in a way that was going to prevent a lot of those funds from going to Planned Parenthood and ultimately prevent all sorts of critical preventive healthcare measures from being provided to people in Wisconsin and in other states. And so after that rule came out, we challenged that along with a number of other states. Now, the Biden administration, when they came into office, made clear that they're going to change that rule so that those critical healthcare services can again be provided. And in light of that, we are asking for the Joint Finance Committee to sign off on our saying, all right, this rule's getting changed. There's no reason to keep going forward with the suit. There's really no purpose to it. So we've asked for approval to withdraw. Now, as you said, without the lame duck legislation, we wouldn't have had to do that. But now it's pending. There's no reason that the legislature should prevent us from withdrawing. And, I certainly haven't heard one put forth. So I'm hopeful we'll move forward. But, the fact that we have to waste resources on this is another example of why these lame duck laws are counterproductive and a waste of taxpayer dollars.
Well, Josh, I probably got time for one more question. Republicans putting forth legislation to make Wisconsin a Second Amendment sanctuary state of some sort. They hope to overrule federal law by state legislation. Doesn't make much sense to me. I saw the DOJ wrote a letter to the governor of Missouri giving him similar advice. This is not going to stand up to constitutional muster. I don't think Tony Evers would sign it into law, Josh. But as the attorney general, would you get stuck defending a law like this if it passed?
Well, like you said, first of all, I'm confident the governor is going to veto it. When there are state laws that are passed that are challenged, we defend them if there's a reasonable basis for defending it legally. What I can say about this particular law is that the theory that the state can opt out of federal laws it doesn't like is one that has been repudiated by history. You mentioned that the US DOJ letter to another state, but this is the kind of argument that was made during the civil rights movement. There were states that said, well, we don't need to follow the federal laws on these issues. And again, those claims were ultimately repudiated. We have to follow federal laws. That's the way our system works. But what this is clearly political posturing by members of the legislature on these issues. It's unfortunate that they haven't actually had a serious debate about common sense gun safety measures like universal background checks.
Josh, got to cut you short. The Attorney General, great state of Wisconsin, Josh Kaul, more Devils. We'll be right back.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
Thanks for the job you do. It sure showed in the Supreme Court.
But I just want to thank you guys for your program.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't get enough credit for this. We've never had a voice ever in this state.
So I think you guys really need to take a bow.
Thanks again for your work. It's really important. You need these guys. They're there for all of us.
You're welcome, everybody, and thank you.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
I'm not a big fan of righty-whitey talk radio, but if I'm going to tune in even for an hour a day, I really wish they'd have a live host. You know, they've still got a Rush Limbaugh show, and the guy's been dead for a couple months.
Playing like Best of Dead Rush.
Do you know how weird that is? I make you this promise. After I'm dead, you don't have to keep playing my sound bites. Although I'm hoping you go first.
The Devil's Advocates, weekdays from 2 to 5.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Couldn't find a good spot to jump in on that song. Want to thank our most recent guest, a fine one indeed. He is the Attorney General, great state of Wisconsin, Josh Kaul, a friend of ours. And I got to tell you, Republicans in this state have made his life a living nightmare before he even took office. Here in the state of Wisconsin, Republicans they're bastard people. And it's not all Republicans, but the ones that seem to get elected into governance here, they are the worst of the worst. And before the Attorney General and the new governor, Tony Evers, and we talk about hometown backwoods politics here in the state of Wisconsin quite a bit, because we've got some of the worst governance in the nation, at least amongst Republicans, and they've had the levers of control. They were swept into power by opposition to Obamacare a decade or more ago, and they're still governing through opposition to Obamacare. And they're still governing each and every day with partisanship in mind. How can we make the other guy look bad? That's more important than, actually serving your constituencies here in the state of Wisconsin so clearly. Otherwise, the topic we talked about with Josh, and he's there for lawsuits and legal matters, but certainly policy matters. He's a grown-up. He's reasonable, unlike these Republicans, and he has an opinion. And here in the state of Wisconsin, it seems indefensible logically for Republicans to fail to accept $1.6 billion in federal Medicaid expansion dollars. That would be for the benefit of 80, 90,000 Wisconsinites. And you hear the Republicans, these backbenchers that have moved up and now are in charge of things like the Joint Finance Committee that is staffed like 12 Republicans, 4 Democrats. So, it's not an even sort of balanced thing. It's a dominated by Republican thing. And they say stuff like, well, we don't want to take that governmental welfare. But of course, every state takes the governmental welfare, air quotes, the federal government dollars are state dollars. They're Wisconsinites that send their tax dollars on to the IRS. And it's whether or not we accept them back from the federal government. And under the current administration, under the Biden administration, they think it's awfully important for people to have access to health insurance. There was a second opening of the Obamacare exchanges, the ACA exchanges. They actually repriced a lot of the insurance policies for the betterment of the consumer. Cheaper health insurance, special timeframes. Go take a look. Well, that's quite objectionable to most Republicans because, god awful welfare safety net. How dare we provide affordable access to health care to their neighbors and constituents over their dead bodies? Fancy, you look like you got
It just seems like they seem to tailor it to the market that they were presented with. That's amazing. Rather than trying to fix the market for their own self so that no matter what, you have to pay everything. Oh my goodness, they reacted to other market forces that weren't under their control completely.
Well, we know here in the state of Wisconsin, Scott Walker had presidential ambitions. He'd been dreaming of being the president since he was an Eagle Scout. But his anti-Obamacare rhetoric, he made terrible decisions just to create this sort of conservative ideology, this acceptable candidacy on a presidential level. And of course, Trump crushed him like a bug. Trump ran over Scott Walker. I don't know, those outside of the state of Wisconsin probably weren't paying as close attention, but Scott Walker won re-election as governor in the state of Wisconsin in November of 2014. At his inauguration in 2015, he had national conservative donors sitting in the crowd. He was giving a speech for his presidential campaign. And by January of 2015, Scott Walker was the belle of the ball at the Iowa Freedom Summit run by Citizens United. Now, Donald Trump was also there that day, but way back then, Donald Trump wasn't taken seriously. He had threatened to enter the race through a number of elective cycles. But Scott Walker was the big shot, thought he was the big shot from Wisconsin, took off his sport coat, didn't use the podium, rolled up his sleeves, and told a couple of fictional stories about how his wife had been threatened during the uprising in the state of Wisconsin. And anybody knows it was a very peaceful event. There was no violence. But that's not the way Scott Walker was playing it. Scott Walker wanted to play the victim card. Oh, my God, the liberal mobs in Wisconsin, they threatened my wife, they threatened my life, but I persevered. And, if I can take on the crowds here in Wisconsin, I can take it on worldwide. The guy analogized taking on peaceful grandmas at the Wisconsin State Capitol. And, there were others. They weren't all grandmas. But he thought that made him qualified to take on ISIS. I mean, the hubris of this man. So, okay, I get it. He wanted to be the president. And his advocacy was, I hate Obamacare. I hate the government. His whole thing is, why do we celebrate the 4th of July and not April 15th? Because we celebrate our independence from government, not our reliance upon government. A guy that worked in the government since 1993 had state health care for his family for going on 30 years. But Scott Walker's advocacy was against expansion of Medicaid. It's going to do it uniquely, force people into the Obamacare exchanges that they really could not afford. But, it's a good presidential launch campaign platform. But by the time you got to Iowa, Scotty Wanker, and you were at 0.0 in the opinion polls, you dropped out of the race after 71 days. I mean, the guy used to be the front runner, and then he was terrible. People started listening to him and said, not this guy. Yet the Republicans here in the state of Wisconsin, that was in 2015. He was out of the race by September of 2015. We're midsummer 2021. And they're still playing the policies of Scott Walker like this is a winner. Scott Walker lost re-election. Scott Walker got crushed, didn't even make it to the polls in Iowa. You're betting on Scott Walker's failed policies? Republicans, don't claim you're bright people. Come back. More Devils. Phone lines open 844-967-2789.
We are a party that believes that the way to measure success in government is by how many people are no longer dependent on the government.
I have never been more excited about anything that I have gotten the chance to work on.
Because you're bastard people.
I find your lack of Devil Radio 92.7 disturbing. Do not fail me again.
Hey, Dom, how many palindromes can you name in 30 seconds?
Race car, mom, dad, reefer, kayak, level. Did I say mom already?
You're forgetting one really important one.
Zero res.
Not only is it the coolest palindrome ever, it's also our favorite.
Right, I remember. Why is that again?
They advertise with us.
Zero res, my favorite palindrome.
And carpet cleaner.
Get
the best carpet cleaning ever. Schedule your carpet cleaning online at zeroresmedicine.com. Tell them the Devil's Advocate sent you.
An industry that started in America should stay in America. At Ignite Glass and Gifts, we strive to offer tons of American-made products, most of which we create by hand in our glass blowing shop. You'll know your product will have thicker, longer-lasting glass, and it's artistically made right here at home. Madison's favorite for glass gifts and vape. Ignite Glass and Gifts, Monona Drive, Williamson Street, and Odana Road. Keep it American-made at Ignite.
Virus update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished mixed. The Dow down 210 points. The Biden administration is going to spend more than $3 billion to advance development of antiviral pills for the coronavirus. Dr. Anthony Fauci says it will go to the antiviral program for pandemics.
And it aims to catalyze the development of new medicines to combat COVID-19 and importantly, to prepare for other pandemic threats.
Fauci says vaccines clearly remain the centerpiece of the arsenal. The AP Sagar Magani reports the number of people filing claims for unemployment last week rose.
That's despite an economy recovering from the pandemic faster than many expected. As more people venture out to spend money, businesses are scrambling to keep up with the demand and hire enough workers, often paying higher wages.
The number of claims jumped for the first time since April. I'm Ed Donahue.
Is your bathroom looking old and worn out? Want to update it, but you don't know where to start? Then let BCI Bath & Shower show you how to turn that old bath into an aisle of beauty and functionality. Our residential bathroom solutions provide the best value on the market, and our customer service is second to none. Our cost-effective BCI Bath & Shower family of products has what you need.
Remodeling our bathroom was a big decision for us.
They didn't make a mess out of our house at all. And at the end of the day, we had a beautiful new bathroom. And it was a great experience the whole way through.
We have the best monthly payment programs in the industry, with payments as low as $68 per month or no interest, no payments for 18 months. That's right. Get the bathroom of your dreams now and pay for it in 2021. Call 1-800-303-2352 for a free no-obligation price quote. That's 1-800-303-2352. When you want quality bathroom products at a great price, it's got to be BCI Bath & Shower. That's 1-800-303-2352.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. The Madison City Council and Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway are attempting to raise the pay for the city's non-union workforce, but the city is uncertain if the method for 2021 would be acceptable through the American Rescue Plan. 7 council members proposed a one-time use of $4.5 million of federal stimulus funds to pay for the raise this year, but the city finance director believes that may be inconsistent with the U.S. Department of Treasury rules. This year, the City of Madison will begin observing Civic Season, a campaign aimed to help residents become more civically engaged in the community. The season will take place from June 19th through July 4th, Juneteenth through Independence Day. The season will also commemorate anniversaries for the Civil Rights Act and the ratification of the 26th Amendment. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show this Thursday. Rolling right along. Your phone calls always welcome here. 844-967-2789. Tom from Madison. Welcome, Tom. What do you got for us?
Hey, Michael. I was just wanting to echo your praises for Scott Walker, the 71-day wonder. I remember him hiding in the tunnel between the parking garage and the Capitol and not much else.
They called those the rat tunnels. Weasel tunnel might have been more appropriate for Walker.
Definitely. And then I remember, we just had this thing defeated in the Supreme Court when it comes to Obamacare. And I remember the Republicans talking about repeal and replacing, and I never did see a replacement plan. We were supposed to have that Trump plan within a week or two of him taking office.
Tom, more of a plan for a plan.
Yeah, sort of. And so I kind of looked it up, and I do believe the Republicans have never had a national health care plan since the Nixon administration.
That's about the last time Republicans tried governing, Tom. I mean, really, what do the Republicans do except oppose at this stage? They're not for anything. They're only against stuff.
Absolutely. And I think the only thing coming close to a healthcare plan was actually Romney Care, which was pretty much just a run of what would become Obamacare.
Well, and that's kind of sort of, as you pointed out, Tom, that's kind of sort of what we've got in place. We've got Romney Care. We've got the Heritage Foundation's bill, and Republicans, of course, hate it all the same because it's got Obama's name on it.
Well, yeah, I remember they used to have polls that were out and saying, do you do you support the Affordable Care Act? And like 70% of the Republicans did. And if you said, do you support Obamacare, then it was down to like 23% or something.
Well, and if you, Tom, appreciate your call. If you take the individual parts of Obamacare, very popular. Even Republicans want to insure their kids and not get kicked off their insurance for pre-existing conditions or lifetime caps. But if you put Obama's name on it, oh, they hate it. Oh, they hate it. 844-967-2789. Fancy.
It's jerseys, man. It's jerseys. Like I said yesterday, if Tom Brady became a Green Bay Packer, he's going to be the best player that ever played ever. He's going to be the best thing ever. And ever. If he doesn't do it, then they have to go and fire all the coaches.
Not if it's Tom Brady. You know, you got to draw a line somewhere. 844, I draw my line at Tom Brady. 844-967-2789. Dick from Madison, welcome back, Dick. How you doing, man?
Good. Your last caller just said exactly what I was going to say.
We got the smartest caller, so are we just wasting time now, Dick, or what are we doing?
But I had another quick thought is that maybe Trump will roll out that plan and his infrastructure plan when he takes power back in August. You think?
Well, you know, I did read the reports where Maggie Haberman said, you know, reality's starting to set in for Donald Trump. You know, when Biden gets the big meeting with Pooty Poot, oh, that's got to sting a little. Haberman said that was really a big deal to Trump.
And with indictments coming, I think that, you know, reality might really set in. And he'll be more focused on his legal problems and trying to stay out of prison.
Well, I can't wait for those days. It almost feels like too much to wish for, Dick, that there might be some.
Which one of his kids
justice
will he sacrifice first?
Don Jr. According to Michael Cohen, he thinks Don Jr. is best suited for prison.
I think you're right. Yep. We should do a poll on that. And whoever's right, you know, gets the kitty.
Well, it would be Eric, but I don't think he trusts him to keep that lie going because Eric will just say, my dad told me to tell you that I did it.
Appreciate your call, Dick. Be like Dick. 844-967-2789. Found this piece over at one of my favorite sites, The Raw Story. Right-wing talk radio, Fox News, Sean Hannity, and the ilk. They're all trying to say, oh, you know, if only Biden was the strong leader that Donald Trump was. I mean, we had guys like Russian Ron Johnson and John Barrasso and Ted Cruz yesterday calling Biden an appeasement tour. And, you know, I saw a cartoon overnight coming out of the right-wing sphere. You know, Putin's got his hand and Joe Biden is the little Charlie McCarthy, the puppet. And I'm thinking, what happened in Helsinki and how did all of you Republicans miss that? But this Republican characterization that Joe Biden was somehow not up for the task. You know who pushed back on that concept? Pooty Poot. Vladimir Putin blows up disinformation claims about Biden's mental fitness. Here's the quote. He doesn't let anything get by, I assure you. Travis Getty at the Raw Story, U.S. conservative and Russian media alike portray President Joe Biden as doddering and mentally feeble. But Vladimir Putin says that just is not true. The Russian president met his American counterpart Wednesday for their first summit in Geneva, and Putin knocked down speculation about Biden's fitness as a leader after a Russian senator asked if he had dementia, reporting by Bloomberg. Here's the quote. The image of President Biden that our and even American media present has nothing to do with reality, Putin said. Biden's a professional. You have to be very attentive with him so as to not miss anything. He doesn't let anything get by. I assure you, the Russian media and many of the American right have speculated the 78-year-old Biden is too old and infirm to effectively serve in the White House. And some have pointed to his use of note cards at the Geneva summit, which Putin said all world leaders do. Well, not Sarah Palin. She scribbled right on her hand. A little bit more from Pooty Poot. His press secretary is a young, educated, beautiful woman who's always mixing things up, Putin said, taking a shot at Jen Psaki, who first drew his ire as State Department spokeswoman in the Obama administration. Biden is collected, knows what he wants to achieve, and does it adroitly, Putin said. He's adroit. That's quite a compliment coming from, Pooty Poot.
And you know what Trump heard when that was said? Biden kisses better.
What did Boris Johnson said that Biden has been a breath of fresh air?
Yeah, Trump.
And I'm thinking
exhausting.
What's that make Trump?
Exhausting when he comes, like whether you like him or not. Even people who are on his side are physically and visibly exhausted from being around this just basically walking toddler.
Well, I was going to say it takes a lot of energy to watch a terrible to unrestrained.
Oh, we love our little Trump, but man, he's just a handful. He.
Something else I take some glee with today in light of the big ruling. The U.S. Supreme Court has killed another Obamacare lawsuit, 3-0, the Obamacare being upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. And this one, they didn't get into the nuts and bolts. They just said, you know what? You don't have standing. So they dismissed it on a narrow cause, but effectively they didn't want to take up this case. And, they've done so twice before, and maybe it's time for Republicans to move on. But the reason the U.S. Supreme Court said no, effectively the reason why this lawsuit failed is probably the fault of Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. I've got some reporting from NPR. I'm going to jump into the middle of this piece. The decision threw out the challenge to the law on the grounds that Texas and other objecting GOP-dominated states were not required to pay anything under the mandate provisions and thus had no standing to bring the challenge to the court. We've talked about this. Here's the quote from the ruling. To have standing, a plaintiff must alleged personal injury fairly traceable to the defendant's allegedly unlawful conduct and likely be redressed by the requested relief, the majority wrote. No plaintiff has shown such an injury fairly traceable to the alleged unlawful conduct challenged here, as NPR reports. The mandate, the most controversial provision of the law, required that people either buy health insurance or pay a penalty. In 2012, and this is where Dom and I just do not see eye to eye, it was upheld by a 5-4 vote. And somehow Dom feels like he was vindicated by this ruling, with Chief Justice John Roberts casting the decisive 5th vote on the grounds that the penalty fell within the taxing powers of Congress. And here's where Trump and McConnell kind of screwed up. In 2017, Congress got rid of the penalty after the Congressional Budget Office concluded that the law would continue to function effectively without it. That prompted the challengers to go back to court, contending that because the penalty had been zeroed out, it was no longer a tax or a mandate. What's more, they contended because the mandate was so interwoven with the rest of the ACA, the whole law must be struck down. The term severability, I believe, lots of good lawyer friends, they've taught me this. You're supposed to be able to cut off the offending appendage. But that's not what the Republicans asked for. They asked for the entirety, the baby to be thrown out with the bathwater. As NPR reports, over 31 million Americans have access to health insurance through the ACA, a record high since the law's inception. The White House said last week, in addition, the Urban Institute reported in May that ACA premiums have gone down in each of the last 3 years. That was the other part, right? Republicans complaining, it's unaffordable, the inflation in healthcare. Like it never happened before the ACA. I never saw any inflation in healthcare. Anyways, here's the point. Many of the provisions of the ACA are now taken for granted. Up to 135 million people are covered by a ban on discrimination against those with pre-existing conditions. Think about that. 135 million Americans have pre-existing conditions. Young adults are now permitted to stay on their parents' insurance until age 26. Copays are not permitted for preventative care, and insurance companies can no longer put lifetime caps on benefits, are required to spend 80% of their premiums on medical coverage, and are barred from discrimination based on factors like gender. But the important takeaway I take is it was the Trump tax cuts. You know, they hadn't really gotten the victory they promised. They promised to repeal and replace. And they hadn't really gotten that far, but they were oh so proud. And I remember Marco Rubio with this poison pill trying to screw the hospitals on their reimbursement rates, you know, not honoring the nature of the law. And above and beyond that, the taking away of the individual mandate penalty, the tax, the fine, if you will. And by virtue of doing so, McConnell and the Trump administration undermined the very essence, the very standing required for their own lawsuit to oppose the ACA. So you wonder why this lawsuit failed? Because of Trump and McConnell. So, you know,
congratulations for shooting yourself in the foot.
Well done, boys. 844-967-2789. Jesse from Madison. Welcome, Jesse. What do you got for us?
Hey, guys. My perspective here is that I don't know that so much McConnell and Trump that would taint this. I get the feeling that this is the establishment Republicans on the SCOTUS protecting the GOP from themselves, from their own lunatic fringe.
That's an interesting take, but you might have some. It might be the right take, Jesse.
Well, and I just think that the cooler heads of what's left of the Republicans on the Supreme Court are thinking, man, if we go to midterms and we wipe out protections from pre-existing conditions and being able to put your kids at 25 or 26 years old on your insurance, et cetera, all the very popular provisions, even with Republican voters, that they knew that they'd get the floor mopped with this, and they were trying to protect them from themselves.
Well, Jess, you make excellent points. I'm not clear in the 2018 midterms. I know that Democrats made healthcare a big talking point. They were pushing healthcare and Obamacare and the preservation thereof, and Republicans were basically selling Trump. Well, that wasn't a very appealing sales pitch. Trump didn't get it done. Anyways, come back with us. More Devil's Advocates, more of your phone calls. They're welcome here at 844-967-2789. We're going to turn topically to Juneteenth soon, but your calls on the ACA could be next.
Moon River.
No puppet. No puppet.
You using the whole fist, Doc?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Congratulations.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute? When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can. But it's just as important to take time for yourself. AARP can help. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates, inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
According to the Federalist Waller account being read into the congressional record by Ron Johnson, if this is just a small number of instigators in 100,000 true Trump-loving people, why did the Trumpsters stop the instigators? Why wouldn't you say, hey, they're not like us, let's stop those guys, instead of joining them in breaking into the U.S. Capitol?
I really believe I'd run into, even if I didn't have a weapon.
Listen to Devil's Advocates weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but they are kind of a big deal.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Barely missing Dom at all. Always appreciate when the audience participates at 844-967-2789. Who indeed? Would it be who or whom?
Yeah, Dominic.
Not missing you, fella. Have a great weekend off. See you on Monday. Maybe.
See, he's a visionary. He knew that Juneteenth was happening and decided to start celebrating early.
In anticipation of the federal holiday, he took the day off. And today,
he doesn't recognize the government. Let's not pretend.
Juneteenth observed Eve, also a Dominic holiday. So anyways, here's something I'd like to point out to Republicans. Here in the state of Wisconsin, as I mentioned, they're still living and dying by the policies of Scott Walker, the failed presidential candidate, the guy that lost re-election in the state of Wisconsin. But Wisconsin Republicans basically have taken his playbook, laminated it, and they're still rolling out the same loser plays. Well, on a federal level, we just had an election. And I know they're doing some sort of a fraud out in Arizona, but Fancy Brian, there was another election audit that happened in Arizona, a bipartisan one, and they've actually reached their own conclusions why the state of Arizona, why Donald Trump lost. We've got some of the breakdown for you.
Oh, this will be fantastic.
As the headline said, Trump cost himself re-election by bleeding GOP support in Arizona, according to their bipartisan audit. A bipartisan audit of Arizona's presidential election found Donald Trump blew his shot at re-election. You don't say. As Republicans look for spurious evidence of fraud in the audit in Maricopa County's ballots, a bipartisan group conducted their own unofficial examination that found GOP voters disenchanted with the former president were key to Joe Biden's win in that county. The review was conducted by Benny White, a Republican who ran for Pima County Recorder, along with Democrat Larry Moore and Independent Tim Halverson, who are two retired executives from the election company Clear Ballot. And they pored over a public database of votes cast to study voter patterns and behavior. The trio focused on voters who showed a commitment to candidates who favored a single party. And they noticed many Republican leading voters declined to vote for Trump. So did you catch all that?
Basically, this election is rigged, so you have to go and vote for me in the election that's not going to count. So they didn't go in to vote for the election that wouldn't count?
Don't think that's entirely what this is implying or reporting. What they're saying is effectively those Republican leaders, and they defined that there were like 15 partisan races on the ballot. So if you voted for Republican in 8 or more of those non-presidential races, you were a Republican leaner. That's how they determined this. But of those people, the vast majority of them didn't vote for Donald Trump. There were let me continue here. They found that 59,800 voters did not vote for the former president while voting for Republicans in at least 8 of the other 15 partisan races. The majority of those renegade GOP voters, 39,000 plus, crossed over to vote for Biden.
Wow.
So you got almost 60,000 Republican leaners in Maricopa County where they're doing the fraud it. And of those, more than half, 39,000, hell, a big number, crossed over and voted for Biden, despite voting Republican up and down the ticket.
And they would have had to hold their nose to do so. I understand. Thank you for doing that. But man, wow.
Now, that's not just a one-way problem, just so you're clear. By comparison, about 39,000 Democratic-leaning voters did not vote for Biden, and just about 21,600 of those renegade voters backed Trump. Again, this is from Maricopa County, Arizona. But if I do the math, sort of back of the envelope style, if you got about 39,100 that crossed over and voted for Biden, and only about 22,000 that turned around and crossed over and voted for Donald Trump, well, there's your margin of victory in the state of Arizona.
I was going to say, remind me again, what was the margin of victory?
Biden won Maricopa County, understanding this was a big turnout for Biden.
Absolutely.
Won Maricopa County by 45,109 votes. But statewide, I believe it was a much closer race than that. So effectively, these Republicans still worship their cult leader, Donald Trump. But why did Donald Trump not win re-election in at least one of the swing states that a statistical analysis not done by cyber ninjas finds that because Republican leaders didn't vote top of the ticket for Donald Trump. And in one single county in Arizona, that was like 39,000 of them. And Joe Biden, although he bled some Democratic-leaning voters as well, he only bled like 22,000. And maybe you could Google, or I could Google. Can't talk and Google at the same time.
Yeah, well,
but
this whole thing reminds me of the Evers election, when Evers was elected, and he won narrowly against Scott Walker. I mean, he won
about 29,000 here in the state of Wisconsin.
But at the same time, that same exact election, you had Tammy Baldwin running for U.S. Senate again against Leah Vukmir, very conservative, but super Trumpy, super right wing, Nurse Ratched type of person, and she won handily. She mopped the floor with Leah Vukmir, but the other race was really, really close. And we determined, I think there was like some between 80,000 and 100,000 Walker voters who also voted for Tammy Baldwin. And I'm telling you, there is more of a chunk out there, and I think the fracture is coming on the Republican side. Yes, there are definitely disaffected Democratic voters, but there are a lot of disaffected and kind of lost Republican voters out there that are leaning more independently.
Do you remember on election night, and Donald Trump had come out and declared victory late in the evening, and Joe Biden stayed quiet because Joe Biden benefited from many early absentee voting people, and they hadn't yet counted them in many districts. But Fox News put Arizona on the board for Joe Biden, and it was still a close race. But people lost their mind. I mean, people lost their jobs. There was violence threatened against election officials. And the Fox News guy that called it, well, we talked about the margin of error, the Republican leaners in Maricopa County that voted for Biden instead of Trump. You know what the overall margin of victory in the great state of Arizona was? 10,457 votes.
Wow.
So Republican leaners in Maricopa County specifically that voted for Joe Biden instead of Donald Trump, and even when compared with the net bleed of Democratic leaners that voted for Trump instead of Biden, provided more than the margin of victory in the state of Arizona for Joe Biden. That's got to sting, Donald Trump. You got no one but yourself to blame.
It's like going hunting with Dick Cheney.
Never go hunting with Dick Cheney. Come back with us. The Devil's Advocates, the 4 o'clock happy hour, turning it local. If you're listening to AM 950, Matt McNeil's next. The rest of you better stick around.
I believe that I'm being called to lead by helping to clear the field in this race so that a positive conservative message can rise to the top of the field.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Get Dad an e-bike for Father's Day. Crazy Lenny has over 150 different e-bikes to choose from. The largest selection in the entire USA.
We have mountain e-bikes for $1,500, fat tire e-bikes with the throttle for $1,100, commuter e-bikes for $980.
Get Dad an e-bike gift certificate so Dad selects the bike he wants and the size he wants.
Gift certificates are discounted, so get a $300 certificate for Dad. You pay only $240.
Get Dad an e-bike gift certificate at Crazy Lenny's e-bikes.
Jimmy, everyone finally went home.
Did they run out of brats and beer?
No, but they did need some sleep because live music is back.
Double dipping infected everyone. Our plan worked.
Double Dip with Jimmy K and Rocker on Max Inc. Radio every Saturday at 6 p.m. Local music, live performances, interviews, and Max Inc. Heavy. Excellent! It's on Max Inc. Radio Saturday nights.
Rocker, they're back.
You are listening to WTTN Columbus, W224EG Madison, always streaming at doubleradio927.com.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. The nation has a new federal holiday. It will actually be tomorrow, commemorating the end of slavery. The AP's Sagar Magani has the story.
June 19th, 1865.
The day known as Juneteenth, when slaves in Galveston, Texas learned they were free. President Biden has signed into law a bill making it the 12th federal holiday.
This is a day of profound, in my view, profound weight and profound power.
A day the nation remembers what he calls the moral stain of slavery and its capacity to heal. It's the first new federal holiday since Martin Luther King Jr. Day was created nearly 4 decades ago. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Since June 19th is Saturday, federal workers will mark the holiday tomorrow. A ruling today from the Supreme Court on Obamacare.
The ACA is here to stay.
That's Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's reaction to the Supreme Court decision on an attempt to do away with the Affordable Care Act. This was the third attempt to end the ACA. The AP's Mark Sherman reports, since the court is more conservative, opponents had higher expectations.
But 2 of those 3, Justices Barrett and Kavanaugh, were in the majority today to rule that the challenge should be rejected.
The Supreme Court also ruled the city of Philadelphia violated the Constitution by limiting its relationship with a Catholic foster care agency over the group's refusal to certify same-sex couples as foster parents. Democrats in Congress are eyeing a $6 trillion infrastructure package that goes far beyond roads and bridges. Israel launched airstrikes on the Gaza Strip for a second time since a shaky ceasefire ended last month's 11-day war. Activists mobilized by the territory's militant Hamas rulers launched incendiary balloons into Israel for a third straight day. There's no immediate reports of casualties from the strikes. The Dow finished down 210 points. This is AP News.
Is your bathroom looking old and worn out? Want to update it, but you don't know where to start? Then let BCI Bath & Shower show you how to turn that old bath into an aisle of beauty and functionality. Our residential bathroom solutions provide the best value on the market, and our customer service is second to none. Our cost-effective BCI Bath & Shower family of products has what you need.
Remodeling our bathroom was a big decision for us.
They didn't make a mess out of our house at all. And at the end of the day, we had a beautiful new bathroom. And it was a great experience the whole way through.
We have the best monthly payment programs in the industry, with payments as low as $68 per month or no interest, no payments for 18 months. That's right. Get the bathroom of your dreams now and pay for it in 2021. Call 1-800-303-2352 for a free no-obligation price quote. That's 1-800-303-2352. When you want quality bathroom products at a great price, it's got to be BCI Bath & Shower. That's 1-800-303-2352.
Hello, I'm Sue Peck with Evolution Financial. Have you found yourself at that tipping point where you realize your finances have become just a bit too complicated? Or maybe you have so much on your plate and you'd love to focus on and support the passions that are most important to you. If you're looking for a local, independent, fee-only, fiduciary financial advisor, contact me, Sue Peck, CFP Professional with Evolution Financial. Search online for Evolution Financial Madison.
Evolution Financial is a registered investment advisor with the state of Wisconsin.
Hey, it's Chris and Brian here from the On the Bus podcast. Be sure to check out new episodes on devilradio927.com.
We interview people who have stories to tell about living life on the road. All the odd food, internal struggles, and insane bathrooms you can handle.
They may be world-traveling gods, but they're all just humans when they're on the bus.
Podcasts drop every other Tuesday on devilradio927.com.
No yelling on the bus!
Al Bachman from Bachman Construction here. A lot of us are spending more and more time at home these days. Maybe you're considering that addition you've been thinking about for the past few years, or maybe you're looking for suggestions on how to improve your space. Join me every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. for my show, Ask the Builder. I share my stories of some of the trickier improvement projects I have undertaken, and we'll be taking your calls.
Ask the Builder airs Saturdays at 9 on Devil Radio. Stream progressive news and talk 24/7, as well as download exclusive podcasts and interviews at devilradio927.com. That's devilradio927.com.
Madison, tune in every weekday from 11 to 2 on Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM for the Tom Hartman program. Join the show's conversation because our democracy is not a spectator sport. Listen live right here on Devil Radio.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Wednesday, the Wisconsin State Assembly approved a package of 4 bills recommended by the Speaker's Task Force on Racial Disparities in an effort to improve law enforcement in the state. The bipartisan task force was created in the wake of the police officer shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha last year. At that time, Republicans in the Wisconsin legislature refused to hold hearings on 9 bills proposed by Governor Tony Evers and the Legislative Black Caucus. The 4 bills passed by the Assembly this week will now go before Governor Evers. Notably missing from the package is anything to address the use of force by law enforcement in Wisconsin. 50% chance of rain showers beginning this morning, leading to isolated thunderstorms throughout the afternoon and a high of 89 degrees. Forecast of strengthening thunderstorms this evening with a chance for high winds and hail, overnight low of 68 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We are sliding into the Thursday 4 o'clock happy hour. And I'm happy today because we ain't missing Dom at all. And we got our fine guest joining us a little bit later in this hour, our good friend Earl Ingram from Devil Radio. You know, and does the show right after this one. You know, you love Earl Ingram. But Earl introduced me to a 50-year Milwaukee tradition about 4 or 5 years ago. Juneteenth. And, you know, as a pretty lily white guy, I was unaware of Juneteenth or what it represented. And Earl and I always try to make a big deal out of Juneteenth. And now, if you're unaware, Joe Biden has signed legislation declaring that tomorrow will be Juneteenth observed, and Juneteenth forevermore will be a federal holiday. So tomorrow, I'm going to bring my pal, Earl Ingram, in to, you know, help edify you folks, to help educate you about Juneteenth. I'm going to turn over the reins of the Devil's Advocates to Earl tomorrow afternoon, and Earl's going to give us a little preview, tell us about some of the fine guests he's got booked. He's going to join me at 4:30. But Fancy Brian, we've been talking a lot about Republicans and their opposition to good governance. Found an interesting headline at the Journal Sentinel, Patrick Marley, and this one sort of dovetails, so I'd like to share it with the audience. With no major opponent yet, Governor Tony Evers is running against the Republican legislature. Governor Tony Evers doesn't know who his opponent will be next year, but in some ways, he plans to run against the legislature. The Democratic governor said he would focus on his administration's response to the coronavirus pandemic as he asked voters for a second term. He said he helped get the state through the illness, even though Republicans who controlled the legislature sued him and declined to take up many of his proposals. Here's a quote from Tony. "I'm frankly very proud of this pandemic work and our response to it. Testing, tracing, shots in the arm, you name it, we've been, especially shots in the arm, we've been absolutely right on top of that. No help from the legislature. They've gone 300 days during it." Evers touted the state's state budget he signed 2 years ago, but expressed frustration with the one Republicans are now working on. The governor and legislative leaders rarely talk, and Evers said he didn't think that they would have a better shot at reaching a deal if they did. Evers' run could be complicated by Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, who's considering running for the U.S. Senate instead of another term as Evers' LT. Evers said Barnes keeps him posted on his plans weekly, and he's leaving it to him, to Mandela, to make up his own mind. For now, Evers essentially has the race to himself. Former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Clayfish, Marine veteran Kevin Nicholson, and lobbyist Bill McCoshen are considering runs but have not yet launched campaigns. 3 political newcomers have filed to run for governor as Republicans. Andrew Hitt, the chairman of the state Republican Party, and a guy who lost like $2.3 million to cyber hackers, blamed Evers for month-long delays in getting thousands of Wisconsinites unemployment benefits. Well, that's quite ironic in that the tardiness of Wisconsin Republicans and the one time they went into session last year cost state taxpayers, those that were unemployed, the first week of their benefits, sort of a collective $25 million, let's call it. And when the Wisconsin Supreme Court earlier this year ruled to end the emergency mask mandates at the insistence of Republicans, well, that would have cost the state of Wisconsin about $70 million per month that Tony Evers negotiated with the Biden administration outside of the context of Robin Voss and the Republican terrorist that wanted to, hold the state hostage? So, Andrew Hitt, you don't have a lot of credibility at this point on this topic, but I read on.
And can we also remind everybody he still lost $2.3 million?
Andrew Hitt, the man that lost $2.3 million, blamed Evers for month-long delays in getting thousands of Wisconsinites unemployment benefits and criticized him for his response to protests that turned violent in Kenosha and Madison. He said Evers has handled the pandemic poorly, saying he should have put together a plan to reopen all schools. Here's a quote from Hitt. The Hitt man. Really, his only accomplishment is blaming the Republican legislature. If you look back at what he's accomplished, it's not much. I think there's been a lot of mismanagement and incompetence and Republican projection. Republicans block Evers' plans, right? Evers narrowly defeated Governor Scott Walker in 2018, but has had difficulty advancing his agenda because of Republican lawmakers. He's been able to get around much of their opposition for the last year because he has control of billions of dollars in federal aid meant to help recover from the pandemic. Evers calls his 2019 budget a success, but said he's troubled by the spending plan Republicans are writing for this 2-year budget cycle. They've approved $128 billion in new spending for schools, less than a tenth of what Evers has sought. Here's another quote from Evers. They have stood in the way of a lot of things, but I will tell you, the last budget was a win for the people of Wisconsin, and there would not have been anywhere near that had Scott Walker been in office. I'll say. The governor rarely speaks with Assembly Speaker Robin Voss of Rochester and Senate Majority Leader Devin LeBahieu of Utzberg, and said he doesn't think it would help to talk to them more often. Another quote from Evers. This one rings quite true. I know the question as well. If you talk to them every day, would things be better? I'd say no, frankly, Evers said. That just isn't the way that it's going to work or the way that it did work. I'm more than happy to talk to them, but they're obviously in a different place than I am. But we will continue to do what we do best, and that is to listen to the people of the state of Wisconsin. Hitt said Evers should be a statesman and find ways to work with Republicans, even if they're putting up obstacles. Come take your beatings, Tony.
I specifically when he was talking about the plan for reopening schools, right? I had a long conversation with my state rep, Jesse Rodriguez. She actually called me back. I give her credit for that. I had a good 20, 30-minute conversation talking about reopening the schools, and I had a couple ideas for it, all this stuff. And she was blaming Evers the whole time for not negotiating, for not trying to do anything with the plan or anything. And I go, okay, fine. Let's say Evers does work with you. What's your plan? What's your plan? And she kept on diverting. And I said, no. What do you want to do? What's your plan? And at the end of it, she said, we're going to leave it up to the local municipalities. And I said, so your plan is nothing. And you're complaining that Evers isn't working with you? That's the problem.
Well, according to Andrew the Hitman, I think leadership is about working with people you don't agree with. It's about figuring out how to collaborate, with terrorists, as the case may be. In the real world, you can't just sit back and say, oh, they won't listen to me. I guess I won't talk to them. No, in the real world, these Republican legislatures would be fired from private corporations for not doing their freaking job.
Or at least for losing $2.3 million.
Well, that'd be Andrew Hitt's reason to be on the outs, but I read on. This is about governing the state, and real leadership is about figuring out how to connect with them. One more point Patrick Marley brings up. Mandela Barnes could leave the ticket. Evers said he considers Barnes a friend and is leaving it to him to decide whether he wants to run for Senate or lieutenant governor. He's done a great job with everything he's worked on, especially climate change, Evers said. I have great respect for him and great respect for his decision-making process. I talk to him weekly about this issue, and he keeps me posted. So whatever he decides, I'm with him on that. If Barnes runs for Senate, there will be a Democratic primary in August of 22 to choose his replacement. The winner will be paired with Evers on a ticket in November 22. A decision by Barnes is expected soon. Already 5 Democrats have launched campaigns for the Senate seat held by Republican Ron Johnson. Johnson, well, he's running for re-election, I strongly suspect, but Marley, gives him the hasn't made an announcement yet sort of disclaimer. So Republicans basically we don't like Tony Evers because he doesn't cooperate and negotiate with us when we're being terrorists. How dare he not show more leadership, more maturity than we would ever demonstrate?
Don't forget, he's governing at their will anyway. Right before he was even elected, he and Josh Kaul's entire powers were limited by former Governor Scott Walker in the Republican legislature in a lame duck session because they are cowards and can't work with other people.
Well, good thing they limited Tony Evers. He won't even talk to them.
I wonder why he won't talk to them, because they did that in bad faith before he even got there.
Here's one problem. I'd love to think the pandemic's over. And here in Dane County, we've done a great job getting ourselves vaccinated, at least the vast majority of us. I think as a percentage, a vast majority of the listeners, all the listeners should be, you should be fully vaccinated right now. But there are many pockets of this state and around the nation where people are more hesitant. Let's call them Trumpster Republicans. And they don't wear the mask and they've called it a hoax. But we got a problem. And here's the problem. We're not out of the pandemic yet. And I don't know if you noted, but British Columbia, the UK, Great Britain has extended their coronavirus pandemic, their restrictions for another month, because there's a variant on the horizon, a pandemic variant, a Delta variant. And bad news, folks, the Delta variant has made its way to the great state of Wisconsin. It's here. It's a problem. It's more highly transmissible. It's potentially a more deadly variant of the coronavirus pandemic. And these Republicans, they just want to handcuff Tony Evers, as they've wanted to do for a year or more. Because, he's been damn tyrannical trying to keep the people of Wisconsin safer at home, trying to keep the schools closed. Tony's wrecking stuff, according to Republicans. But what if the problems are not solved? What if we have another surge? That's my greatest fear. It's not going to affect me. I'm fully vaccinated. I'm feeling like $100. But for the resistant Republicans here in the state of Wisconsin, they could wreck it for the rest of us when we start seeing more shutdowns because people won't get a shot in their arm because Trump told them not to. Come back. More devil's advocates.
We became a pretty good governing party.
We really don't know if I have the authority to do that.
This is Pat Slattery of Slattery's Automotive Service in Verona. Established in 1973, I've been servicing and repairing cars in the Madison community for nearly 50 years. You can trust me to tell you what your car really needs and fix it right the first time. Give me a call at 608-848-6123 to schedule an appointment today. Slattery's Automotive Service, your trusted choice for local service and repairs for all your automotive needs.
Get that e-bike for Father's Day. Crazy Lenny has over 150 different e-bikes to choose from, the largest selection in the entire USA.
We have mountain e-bikes for $1,500, fat tire e-bikes with the throttle for $1,100, commuter e-bikes for $980.
Get Dad e-bike gift certificate so Dad selects the bike he wants and the size he wants.
Gift certificates are discounted, so get a $300 certificate for Dad. You pay only $240.
Get Dad e-bike gift certificate at Crazy Lenny's e-bikes.
My name is Rocker, and this is my vodka. Rocker Vodka is distilled right here in Madison, made from corn and gluten-free. Find Rocker Vodka at Woodman's, Festival Foods, Trixie's Liquor, Star Liquor, Steve's Liquor, Willie Street Co-op, Total Wine, Vic Pierce, Miller's Market, Cambridge Cooler. Find more at rockervodka.com. It's yummy. Must be 21. Please drink responsibly.
Hey, Darcy, I just saw the perfect house and I want you to help me write an offer on it.
I'd be happy to, Dom. Were you at the open house?
No, I just called the sign and had the agent show it to me. I don't want to bug you.
Oh, Dom, how many times have you heard me say don't call the sign?
But
you called the agent working for the seller, and once you see the property with that agent, I'm no longer free to write an offer on it.
So
you need to hire us from the beginning, help you find the right home, negotiate on your behalf, and protect your interests all the way through the process. And it shouldn't cost you a dime.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Find them at solidarityrealty.com.
WTTN 1580 AM News Talk Radio, built for the 99%, is rural Wisconsin's home for Devil Radio.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Welcome back from the 420 break. I'm not sure where Dominic is at this moment in history, but I'm pretty sure what he's doing. He'll be back on Monday. We'll keep doing this big show. We got Earl Ingram from Devil Radio joining us next. Going to talk about Juneteenth in a big special presentation show Earl's going to help me with tomorrow. We're going to do a Juneteenth special. Joe Biden has signed off on legislation making Juneteenth a federal holiday. But in Milwaukee, they've been celebrating Juneteenth, the longest continuous celebration of Juneteenth in the nation. 50 years. It's the 50th anniversary of the Juneteenth celebration. Earl's going to be along soon. You could be a part of this program right now by dialing 844-967-2789. But I got to tell you, Fancy, you, the audience, I'm a little nervous about this new Delta variant of the COVID strain. And it's now here in the state of Wisconsin. And it's going to be a bigger problem because it is, let me just read.
Where in Wisconsin?
Let me read. Molly Beck reporting at the Journal Sentinel. State health officials have identified nearly 36 cases of a new fast-spreading variant of COVID-19 in Wisconsin that was first detected in India last year. The Wisconsin Department of Health Services is tracking the Delta variant, which has been found in 35 positive coronavirus tests since April, according to state data. The Delta variant only constitutes about 6% of COVID cases in the United States, but could eventually overtake the Alpha variant as the dominant virus in the U.S. in Wisconsin. The new strain devastated India in recent months and has fueled a surge in cases in the UK more recently. It was evaluated to a variant of, elevated to a variant of concern in Wisconsin earlier this month. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced this week he was delaying lifting all coronavirus restrictions by 4 weeks because of the rise in the COVID-19 infections, 90% of which were a result of the new variant. So in the UK, 90% of people with coronavirus have this new Delta variant, which is now in Wisconsin. The Delta variant is more resistant to COVID-19 vaccines if, and this is a big if, a person has only received 1 dose of the Pfizer or Moderna, federal health officials warned this week. So if you only got 1 shot and you've been putting it off or you skipped your second shot, there's a very good reason not to do that. Go get your second shot. Get fully vaccinated. The Delta variant is here. It is amongst us. It is in Wisconsin. Here's a quote. The Wisconsin DHS Secretary, Karen Timberlake, a statement from her. We urge Wisconsinites to protect themselves, their families, and their communities by getting vaccinated. The sooner people get vaccinated against the COVID-19, the less opportunity for the virus to keep mutating. The number of cases of the Delta variant rose from 21 to 35 in a day's time, according to the state data. Did you catch that, Fancy? 21 to 35. So that's what, a 67% increase in 1 day.
Wow.
obviously those numbers will grow. In total, there have been about 16,000 cases involving a variant of COVID-19 since the agency began tracking them. More than 3,000 of those cases are the alpha strain, or B117, which is 50% more contagious than the first strain of COVID-19. The Delta variant spreads even faster, and cases of COVID-19 have plummeted in Wisconsin since state and local health officials began distributing COVID-19 vaccines widely in the first few months of the year. On Thursday, the state recorded 85 new cases of COVID-19. But if I read that math, of those 85 new cases, 14 of them are a result of this Delta variant. We went from 21 to 35 in a day. That's 14 new cases of 85 in a day. Now, that number overall is down dramatically since November's peak of 8,000 cases reported in one day. Yeah, I'd say. So we're down to less than 100 cases a day. And that's tremendous news. And the weather's fine, and, we can go back out. And here in Dane County and across the state of Wisconsin, all the restrictions have been lifted. But now it's on you, folks. You've got to do the right thing. You can't depend on your neighbors to herd immunity from this variant. If you've only taken one of the shots, go get the other one. Go get your second shot. And if you have failed to get vaccinated up until now due to hesitancy or whatever, I don't know, whatever's on your mind, this new variant is more contagious and it's more deadly. You don't want to be the last person in our state, in this nation, dying of the COVID-19 or a variant thereof. Go do the right thing. There's plenty of places. I saw some bar, and this is perhaps the best incentive I've heard yet. Our friend Kirk Bankstead over at the Minocqua Brewing Company has done a couple of those emancipation inoculation parties, right? Come and get a free beer with your shot. Encourages you to get the shot. But I saw there's a bar in Wisconsin. This is very appealing, even to the Trumpsters, I would guess, Fancy Brian. You come and get a single dose, Johnson & Johnson. Now, I'm going to have to verify where this bar's at, but I know it's in Wisconsin. You get to drink all night long.
Wow. I might get vaccinated again.
I'm not sure if that's bar rail or top shelf, Fancy Brian, but if you can drink all night for free and do the right thing for your health, I mean, you're kind of killing your liver at the same time.
Those a challenge,
saving your lungs. But that seems like the sort of incentive that would really resonate with my Wisconsinite friends.
Like chasing a car. I don't know what I'd do with it if I got it all, but I will drink all of it for free.
There used to be a place in La Crosse yesterdays, and you'd go there and Thursday nights, and ironically, it's Thursday, $4, all you could drink bar rails. I have never been able to drink whiskey since. I went through whiskey. I went through gin. I killed like 4 different types of alcohol. I can't even smell again.
All in one night.
Well, no, all through a career of going to yesterdays on Thursday nights. Come back with us. A fine guest, Earl Ingram Jr., going to turn our attention to Juneteenth. Stick around. More Devil's Advocates.
Life finds a way.
Kind of grabs you by the boo-boo, don't it?
Talk radio made for the 99% on Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Knucklehead CBD and Vapes are one-stop shop for everything you need. Knucklehead strives to be the safest place in Madison. Forgot a mask? No problem. We got one for you. Stuck at home or in a hurry? Call us at 608-284-0151 and schedule a pickup or delivery. Check out our ever-growing online store at knuckleheadcbd.com and get something shipped right to your door. We love sales at Knucklehead, so make sure to check out our social media for all of our daily deals. Shop is open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. Knucklehead CBD and Vapes, 550 State Street. I'm Lando Commando, and I'll see you there.
Hey, Jimmy, have you heard of the new live music venue in downtown Brooklyn? New York City? No, Jimmy. Main Street Music in Brooklyn, Wisconsin, 20 minutes south of Madison.
I see they feature local music like rock, country, and they even get heavy sometimes.
Well, that's right, Jimmy. Brand new stage, live music Friday and Saturday nights. We have Sunday Bloody Mary bar with open mic, plus a full bar and locally made pizza. We are Brooklyn, Wisconsin's only live music venue. For more information, find us on Facebook or go to mainstreetmusicmore.com.
federal holiday, June 19th, into law. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. President Biden signs a bill into law that makes June 19th, a national holiday.
As I was walking down, I regret that my grandchildren aren't here, because this is a really, really, really important moment in our history.
June 19th, 1865 was the day black slaves in Galveston, Texas were told by Union troops of being free. That was 2 months after the Confederacy had surrendered and some 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation freed slaves in the southern states. The Supreme Court, on a 7-2 vote, rejects the latest Republican-led effort to kill the Affordable Care Act, preserving insurance coverage for millions of people. The National Hurricane Center issues a tropical storm warning for parts of the northern Gulf Coast. As much as 20 inches of rain could fall as a result of what is likely to be Tropical Storm Claudette. I'm Tim McGuire.
Is your bathroom looking old and worn out? Want to update it, but you don't know where to start? Then let BCI Bath & Shower show you how to turn that old bath into an aisle of beauty and functionality. Our residential bathroom solutions provide the best value on the market, and our customer service is second to none. Our cost-effective BCI Bath & Shower family of products has what you need.
Remodeling our bathroom was a big decision for us.
They didn't make a mess out of our house at all. And at the end of the day, we had a beautiful new bathroom. And it was a great experience the whole way through.
We have the best monthly payment programs in the industry, with payments as low as $68 per month or no interest, no payments for 18 months. That's right. Get the bathroom of your dreams now and pay for it in 2021. Call 1-800-303-2352 for a free no-obligation price quote. That's 1-800-303-2352. When you want quality bathroom products at a great price, it's got to be BCI Bath & Shower. That's 1-800-303-2352.
Stream. For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Wednesday, state assembly Republicans passed bills that would ban transgender student athletes from competing in girls' and women's athletics, two pieces of legislation Governor Tony Evers has expressed his opposition to and is expected to veto if they reach his desk. Earlier this week, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services elevated the Delta variant of COVID-19, first identified in India last year, from variant of interest to variant of concern. Health officials are encouraging unvaccinated residents to get their COVID-19 vaccines as soon as possible to protect from the spread of this and other variants of the virus. Yesterday, U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany was one of 14 Republican lawmakers to vote against making Juneteenth a federally paid holiday. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Thursday 4 o'clock happy hour is rolling on, and we've been joined by a fine guest. He's our pal, Earl Ingram Jr. He's the host of the 5 to 6 p.m. show right here on Devil Radio. Earl, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates, man.
Hey, man, it's about time you invited me back.
Don't act like that, man. Earl, I got to admit, 4 or 5 years ago, you dragged me to a Juneteenth event in Milwaukee, and we broadcast, and you threw out candy to the kids, and I was your driver, and we broadcast from the event. Earl, this is a long-term event, the celebration of Juneteenth. It's the 50th year anniversary in Milwaukee, is it not?
It is the 50th year anniversary in Milwaukee. This is one thing that I'm proud of Milwaukee for, because with all the other negative things and connotations, when you talk about people of color and Milwaukee, they're all usually negative. But in this instance, Milwaukee's Juneteenth celebration is not only the largest in the nation, it is the longest running. And Saturday, it will be 50 years old.
Earl, the president, Joe Biden, today signed legislation making Juneteenth a federal holiday. It will be observed tomorrow. And Earl, I got to tell you, I was unclear until this week that it was singularly U.S. Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin that was blocking the advancement of this federal holiday. And above and beyond that, once it came up for a vote in the House of Representatives, Wisconsin's own Congressman Tom Tiffany, one of only 14th that voted against making Juneteenth a federal holiday. Republicans in the state are constantly an embarrassment.
Crudy, and maybe it's because they don't understand the correlation between Juneteenth Day and the celebration of people who were slaves, and maybe they don't understand what it means. I was listening to Senator Johnson say, "Well, we can't afford that. It's going to cost us too much money." Well, never mind that. What it stood for and what it stands for is more important than the 600 or so. I don't know how many dollars he said it was going to cost, but certainly what it means to people of color and ancestors surely outweighs all the other things that he and other Republicans are talking about.
Yeah, but
when you find out, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, but Rojo's nearly an albino. He knows it's not his ancestors being celebrated. If anything, he was probably on the other side of the plantation scenario, if you know what I'm saying, Earl.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Crudy, it's, as much as you see things, if you've been around as long as I have, and you see things that you're surprised by. This is one I'm surprised by. I truly am surprised that Juneteenth is now a national holiday, and the fact that it came out of nowhere, and the fact that it was implemented immediately, and that and overwhelmingly, by Republicans in the Senate and in the House. Because people have been fighting this for a long time. I don't know, Crudy, what changed?
Well, Ron Johnson got out of the way. Ron Johnson, singularly, a single U.S. senator can block the advancement of legislation. And that's precisely what Ron was doing up until earlier this week. But Earl, let me ask you, I see there are new Juneteenth celebrations in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, in Wausau, Wisconsin, and that is the first year they're ever going to celebrate Juneteenth in that neck of the woods. Earl, do you take some encouragement that these, northern Wisconsin communities are starting to acknowledge Juneteenth?
I think, Crudy, it has a lot to do with the fact that when you look at Black Lives Matter and you look at the organization of Black Lives Matter, and you see the people and you see that it's not a bunch of Black people in supporting Black Lives Matter. It is a lot of younger, college-educated, white students and adults now who know that there's been some injustice and that they're willing to stand up and fight that injustice. And it's always been, Crudy, the younger people who've been able to affect change where there's been such horrendous crimes done to people.
Well, I learned from you in no small part, Earl, about the housing marches, and I believe it was 1968. Father Groppe and the 200 plus days of marches that went on. Well, in response to the murder of George Floyd, there have been hundreds of days of marches going on in Milwaukee. Earl, do you see this as parallel, analogous, or is it just a crying shame that here we are still marching 50 plus years later?
Well, Crudy, now if you're not talking about in correlation to Juneteenth Day, we're just talking about
marching for social justice and for differing outcomes in Milwaukee, especially.
Crudy, it is shameful that after all this time that we still have to deal with those types of issues in this country, especially when you see that there are people of color who fought battles in the military and still to this day are part of that and put their lives on the line. Can you imagine? You think back to the 1960s when there were men fighting over in Vietnam, Black men fighting over in Vietnam, and yet their family members couldn't live wherever they wanted to live. When you look at things from that perspective, and people say, well, it's getting better. Well, it may be getting a little better, but it should have never been that way in the first place. So we can't be excited about it getting a little better, because how many more generations have to pass beyond these shores before justice is delivered? And getting better is not justice.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I've been joined by a good friend. He's Earl Ingram from the Earl Ingram Show. Plays out immediately after this fine program. Earl, I got to tell you, I am well aware of the statistics that Wisconsin's got some of the most disparate outcomes for people of color. And when I first went to neighborhoods in Milwaukee, and the vast majority of the Black people in the state of Wisconsin live in a handful of zip codes in Milwaukee. And Earl, I'd been to Flint, Michigan, and I'd seen, sort of the urban decay of Flint, Michigan. But I got to tell you, man, when you and I first went down the parade route, the Juneteenth parade route, I was really stunned by some of the poverty and the boarded up storefronts and the urban blight in Milwaukee. Because here in Madison, we don't see that, Earl. And in the rural parts of the state, they don't see that sort of blight and poverty. But Earl, you live in a city that's blighted. There are, what's your reaction, Earl? It seems like there are at least pockets of Milwaukee that are beyond reach or haven't been reached by year after year of programs.
So imagine this, Crudy, if you will. I've lived long enough to have witnessed Milwaukee being one of the best places in the entire country for people of color to live in the late 1960s, early 1960s, and up to the early 1970s. Milwaukee had the highest standard of living for Black people in the entire nation. And in my lifetime, I've seen it go from the best place in the nation for Black people to live to now one of the worst. I don't care what economic indicator you look at, Milwaukee is the worst. So I constantly tell people what Milwaukee should be held up as is a symbol on how you can go in a 50-year span from the best place in the nation for people of color to live to the worst. And whatever happened, and I know what happened, and many others know what happened, that should never be allowed to happen again anywhere else in this nation. And yet, it's almost like these are not American citizens anymore. And through no fault of their own, in this country, we have to deal with this kind of reality. And it's not just in Milwaukee, though, Crudy. It's urban centers across the nation. It's the same thing. So when you talk about Juneteenth Day and people celebrate and people say, our ancestors, what they went through, and when the opportunity for freedom came to them, they still did not receive the freedom, even though the government said on this day, you were free. And then in many instances in Texas, 2 years later, people still did not know they were free and still were treated as slaves. And then you hear people say, well, happy Independence Day. And then they expect people of color to say, okay, well, I'm down with that. But when you know the history of what happened and why Juneteenth is so important, you can't see when you say to people, you should celebrate the 4th of July. Some of us say, well, that's not my Independence Day.
Earl, often the occupants of the city of Milwaukee are they're vilified, whether or not they're vilified by race. We all hear the dog whistles. We all know when the righty whitey talk radio hosts are talking about the criminals in Milwaukee, who they're talking about. And Earl, it was shocking. Maybe it shouldn't be, but Joe Sanfilippo, a rep from Waukesha County, is now telling the governor of the state of Wisconsin he needs to put National Guard troops not on the streets of Waukesha, not in the white neighborhood where he lives out in New Berlin, but in your neighborhood, Earl. He doesn't
So
even live there.
So let me respond to that. First off, you have to know who Joe Sanfilippo is, where he came from. And I remember Joe Sanfilippo when he first got elected as Milwaukee County Board member. And he was a lowly county board member. And he was quiet as a mouse. He was a little weasel kind of guy. And then Conservative Talk Radio made him who he is now, gave him a real voice on the state level. And that's when Joe Sanfilippo took his hatred and his racism to a state level. And he knows that he's backed by conservatives. And so he'll say whatever it is he wants to say, because now he's not the little weasel that was on the county board, Milwaukee County Board, with very little power. He's now a person on a state level, and he's supported by conservative talk. So he can make those kinds of, I think, crazy statements. There's nothing the National Guard can do to address what is happening and taking place in the city of Milwaukee right now. What is taking place in the city of Milwaukee right now is vestiges of the fact that for 50 years it was ignored. The people of color of this city, the businesses moved out of the city into suburbs, and even the industry that I worked in for over 30 years that gave me an opportunity to live a middle-class lifestyle and send my kids to college like many in the suburbs, buy a home and those types of things. All of that dried up and disappeared. Milwaukee used to be the machine shop of the world. So in my lifetime, we had all of those opportunities. But once NAFTA took all of that away, Milwaukee was never able to redefine itself as other areas too were. And we wound up with generational poverty. And
Earl,
that's what we're dealing with now.
Buddy, we're out of time, but you're going to take the reins of the Devil's Advocates tomorrow, do a Juneteenth special. Give them a little preview. Any big guests you got lined up so far?
Oh, absolutely, man. We'll have Professor Bob Harvey. If you've never heard him, Professor Bob Harvey is a national treasure. We're going to have Claiborne Benson, who is the executor of Wisconsin's Black Holocaust Museum. And
Earl, I'm sure it's going to be a fine program. Stick around for the Earl Ingram program to follow this big one, but I got one segment left, and I'm giving Earl the microphone tomorrow.
Freedom. Come on, man.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Hi, this is Gordy from Kopke's Greenhouse near Oregon, Wisconsin. For over 35 years, gardeners have been coming out to our farm for their vegetables and flowering plants. We invite you to escape from the city and enjoy the beauty of Mother Nature's bounty. You can get our hours and directions from our website, kopkesgreenhouse.com. That's Kopkes greenhouse.com. From all the families that rely on your support, we say thank you.
Hey folks, Patrick here from Pegasus Games, here to remind you that we're open for all your at-home gaming needs, both online at pegasusgames.com or in-store from noon to 6, with extended hours on Saturday and Sunday morning from 10 a.m. to noon for high-risk customers. From our new line of puzzles to pass the time, to the perfect board game to reconnect with family and friends. Walk-ins welcome or curbside pickup available over the phone or online at pegasusgames.com. Pegasus Games, home to games you never outgrow.
Hey, it's Pizza Box Mike. I've got a show outside the Pizza Box. Be sure to listen on Saturdays at noon on Devil Radio. There is a reason why they won't let me on Facebook anymore.
In time,
you will know the true power of Devil Radio 92.7. It is your destiny.
The Devil's Advocates, so relevant they have 1 foot in tomorrow.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Only one big segment left in this program. Then it's the Earl Ingram Show with our good friend and recent guest, Earl Ingram Jr. And Earl's going to cover my shift tomorrow. I'm going to hand off to Earl about 2 o'clock tomorrow. And in lieu of the fact it is a federal holiday, Juneteenth, we're going to do a celebration of Juneteenth. We're going to have Earl bring on a number of historians and very smart doctorate level sort of people. Bob Harvey is very good.
I love Bob Harvey. He's great.
He is very good. So Earl's going to educate you and edify you and teach you many of the things about Juneteenth. And this is an important conversation. And it's sprung up very recently in lieu of the fact that Joe Biden just signed this legislation into law today. But Earl taking the microphone, man, guy would do 10 hours a day of radio if I let him. But Earl's going to do a 4-hour show beginning at 2 o'clock tomorrow. He's going to fill in for the Devils, going to do his regular shift, and coming to Madison.
That which is awesome.
I got a Devil Radio shirt for you, Earl. You got to come pick it up. And a WBA award. Earl won a WBA award.
Another one,
year.
yes.
Another one.
Yeah.
The award-winning Earl Ingram Jr. Tom and I didn't win any awards this year.
Well, I think
you got to look up and respect the more celebrated products here.
We need to enter in more categories too, as well. Do a little bit spread out.
Yeah, we'll see.
We also need to recognize the WIBA as an authority figure and all that stuff. And
the WBA.
Exactly.
Respect by authority.
Yeah, exactly.
The Broadcasters Association, not the evil righty-whitey competitors down the dial.
Either way, they're an authority, and I'm pretty sure that at least Dom doesn't recognize them.
844-967-2789. We recognize your calls when you dial. Andy from Beaver Dam, welcome back, man.
Hey, Crudy. I just want to second the motion about Professor Harvey. That guy he knows it all. I think, didn't he teach at lacrosse where you went to school for a while?
I never had a class with Dr. Harvey. I think he went on to North Carolina State University, but Dr. Harvey is a frequent guest with Earl. And if you've ever experienced it, he can tell a tale, and it's all based in the actual history that my white college professors didn't often teach me, Andy.
And he was also, I think he was a master sergeant. He taught the M1. He taught people how to shoot the machine gun, and also did an interview with myself and Daryl about the AR-15 and what it's and how it was specifically designed, because people don't want to actually kill other people, and it was designed to make you kill people better.
Yeah, right. Well, Earl's about 7 years younger than I am, but I was in the Carpenters Union in Milwaukee in the 60s when they had the housing demonstrations and so forth. But there was jobs all over the place. I mean, there was a concrete strike on the job I was working on. I was 21. And then I went down to the Longshoremen's Union Hall and got a job before containerization. Everything was hauled on skids and everything. Now it's all in containers. But, there was all kinds of stuff and had to be moved manually.
Well, Andy, there were good manufacturing jobs. I know Earl was a union guy at A.O. Smith for 20 years plus. And, you didn't have to have a college education to be able to have a family sustaining job. And that's what's changed. I've heard people on Earl's show talking about, if you didn't like the way it was going at your employer, you'd cross the street, you'd get hired the next day. And that was a family sustaining job with a good wage and probably benefits and maybe even a pension if you stuck around long enough. Andy, as we have seen the decimation of the labor unions were, I love the military and the labor unions for integrating America. And in no small part, as we have done away with the labor unions, and of course that's been the avocation of Scott Walker and Republicans, what they've done is they've allowed people to basically silo. We don't integrate with our neighbors in the same way. And Earl Ingram, and having Earl on this radio station, I got to tell you, has exposed me to things that I never would have been exposed to on my own. I never would have made it to Juneteenth of my own volition, Andy. But Earl's taken me down there for 3, 4, 5 years in a row. And obviously, it's a big deal. And it's a big deal in the Black community of Milwaukee. And it really should be a big deal to all of us because it's a reflection of our history. And it should be a celebration. You know, our history as a nation, Andy, and you well know this, you know, it's not a straight line of nothing but good and shiny and light. There's a lot of bad things in our history, and that doesn't make us a god-awful or a second-rate country. But the failure to acknowledge our history makes us a second-rate or a bad country.
Right. No, it's bad. I'm hoping that more African Americans and minorities made it into the trades, because when I was in there, the only thing that African Americans were basically in the 113, the laborers union. But when you talk about carpenters, electricians, plumbers, there was no minority people in there. And now there's no white guys to take those positions like there was in those days. So,
Andy, I know that the roofers, and I'm talking about the industrial roofers, big project roofers, our friends down in Milton, they're bringing on apprentices. Those are family sustaining jobs. Those are career type jobs, you know, with the Cadillac insurance plans and all that kind of stuff. Wish we had more time to talk unions. Going back to the phones, running short on time, but time for you, Joe from Madison. What do you got for us?
Well, I'll be quick. And the first is to thank you so much for the big party the other night at Hawks.
I can't believe we missed you, Joe. Both Dom and I specifically are like, we wanted to meet Joe. Sorry.
I got to meet Joe. She's awesome.
Oh, you're a sweetie. You're a you're a sweet guy. Anyway, it was really great to meet Andy from Beaver Dam, and talk with him and his pals and chat a bit more. And so I wanted to thank Hawk so much for putting that together, and you guys for putting that together. And I'd encourage other people who may be kind of shy and introverted to just put on the old party hat and come on down when you guys have other events planned, because it's really fun to meet other people, and it was a really good time. I am thrilled to hear what's going to be happening with the whole show tomorrow on Juneteenth, because I am not knowledgeable about it at all. And I would encourage people to listen, because the Black Holocaust Museum in Milwaukee, which looks at the country's history of lynching and what that has meant to the African American community and to our country as a whole, is absolutely a fascinating subject. So I'm really looking forward to that. Kudos to Earl for another award. My God, just get the trophy case a little bit bigger, you guys, make an addition onto the studios to make that all work.
We just got to put the addition on to Earl's trophy room at home, because Dom and I apparently don't win trophies anymore, Joe. Just Maggie Dawn and Earl and the other fine host here on Devil Radio.
Yeah, but you participated like hell.
Should we get a participation ribbon?
Or maybe a pizza trophy.
Want to thank our fine guest today, Earl Ingram Jr., and of course, the Attorney General of the great state of Wisconsin, Josh Kaul. I'm going to hand off the microphone tomorrow to Earl. But if you want a little preview of what the Juneteenth special might sound like, stick around. Earl Ingram's next and Native Roots Radio. And then we're going to roll out a brand new World Caucus show right here on Thursday nights. That's coming July 1st. This Devil Radio continues to grow stronger each and every day. Thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody, we're all going to get laid.
Hey, Joanne, I hear you have a Tech Protect plan from Community PC.
I have been having services since 2003.